Hi, I'm not Wilford Brimley, but I have diabetes. Hey, everybody, welcome to Wednesday. My mustache is now at the annoying, unmanageable part that I despise, but I'm damn glad that we raised a lot of good money for recovering from religion. Thank you guys so much for all of that. Tonight, I've got John Gleason on with me. We're going to talk about the ARC protest, and we'll be taking calls. As always, we will prioritize theistic callers or anybody who wants to justify why it would be a bad idea to object to the absolute nonsense surrounding the special treatment that the ARC encounter generally got and continues to get. I posted a video about this Jordan Peterson versus 20 atheist thing, basically that one was enough. It's like an hour and a half long, but a lot of you have watched it, and so a huge thank you to everybody who paid attention to it. I've got another video coming out on my channel this Friday, specifically addressing one of the things that we didn't cover in that video, which was Jordan Peterson talking about what is belief. And so that's coming out in 2 days on my channel. I'm sure there'll be a link down there in chat somewhere. And for those who care about all the snake stuff and everything else that's going on, I will be vending snakes at the Herps Expo in Conroe on the weekend of the 14th. If you are in or can get to the greater Houston area, you can come by and say hi and buy all of my snakes. Really, you can buy all of them that are there. It'd be awesome. I've got some news bits, but just as a reminder, some of you may remember last week, this individual, Neil, the Gnostic informant. I had invited him to call in because on a Facebook thread, he was basically complaining something about woke left mob hypocrites. I still don't fully understand. But he said that my viewers were miserable. And I was like, well, I'm live tonight. Come on in and explain to them why they're miserable. And then when he got here, he backed down and said that, oh, it was just me that was miserable, and that I probably wasn't a part of the woke left cult because I seemed sincere. And he doesn't really have a problem with the left part of it. And his definition of cult is exceptionally weird. It just seems to be hypocrites acting as a group. That's not a cult, but okay. And then he went, after we hung up, he went and had a pity party to try to claim that I was actually in the woke left cult and that I just can't operate without a mute button. Clearly, he hasn't seen the countless debates I've done or realized all the times when I have no control over a mute button. And so we're talking about possibly doing a debate. And the issue is, what's the subject of the debate? And why is my phone beeping just as soon as the show starts? What's the subject of the debate? Well, you want to do it about, there's a woke left cult in the atheist community, but I don't know what any of that means or what it is to object to, because he says he's on the left. It's really confusing. My only issue was that he was bragging about subscriber count and views and how if you don't bow to the woke left mob, you're going to get more subscribers. And he was shitting on someone with fewer subscribers. But I think he's since gone off and learned that despite the fact that he has a few more subs, his channel has about 20 million views. My personal channel has about 25 million views. He says it's because I've been doing this for 20 years, but the thing that he didn't know is my channel was not monetized or promoted by YouTube until 6 months ago. And the first half of that, there were virtually no subscribers. The Line has over 60 million views despite having fewer subscribers. And while I can't take credit for all of it, I think I can take credit for a big chunk of it. The Atheist Experience channel has over 400,000 subs and a couple 100 million views. I don't know how much of that's mine, and it doesn't matter because none of it is relevant to who is right. None of it is relevant to whether or not there's a woke left cult or what a cult is or who's on the left or who's being a hypocrite. It is stuff I've never cared about. Arden can tell you that not only until, I don't know, a week ago, I didn't really know how to go look up analytics. I didn't care about them. I've never chased the algorithm. I didn't monetize my channel. I left money on the table there at YouTube just so that I could say, hey, I'm not chasing the algorithm. I only care about the mission. Turns out that's a big mistake. Nobody cared about it. So I could have had more money than I have. So we're fixing it. But none of it matters. None of it is relevant to who's right or anything else. I just hate bad arguments from braggarts who try to shit on my audience and smaller channels and then call me a liar and offer a half-assed apology when I prove them wrong. It's just annoying. Can we get back to the real issues going on here? if you want to hang out with racists and promote them, you go right ahead. Just, I don't want to hang out with you. It's that easy. I don't want to promote your stuff. Just felt like clearing up some of the data there. He got really mad because I said he was irrelevant, and his view was, how can I be irrelevant when I have more subscribers than you? And the thing that he didn't understand that we didn't get into is he's irrelevant because that comment has nothing to do with subs and views. It had to do with whether the comments that he was making were coherent or worth considering. And they weren't, and they aren't. Maybe a debate can happen if we can ever figure out what he's whining about, but we'll set all that aside. In news this week, Trump announced today that he had had an hour-long conversation with Vladimir Putin, and that Putin is going to be retaliating against, in response to Ukraine's devastating attacks, which is, of course, a response to Russia's attacks and violations of anything that was moving towards peace, which is just basically peace isn't imminent. And Trump said this fairly clearly, that the conversation didn't lead to a new peace. He said that they were on the phone for over an hour. Now, I remember he said he'd solve this in one day. I'm pretty sure he said on day one, but let's give him a little bit more rope here. Maybe he meant in one day, and maybe he meant over the course of 24 one-hour phone calls spread out over a couple of years. Because today's 1 hour phone calls, that may count towards the 24 hours of the one day that it's going to take him to fix this. Just like it took him one day. Well, actually, there's very little that it took him one day to do except to shit on trans people and undo all the things that he could do with executive orders that Biden had got done. That was day one. I will say that I'm mildly optimistic that the courts are pushing back a little, and some polling data I've seen with regard to people running for office in a number of different locations. When you're doing your town hall and people say that, hey, your action is going to cause people to die, and your response is to say, we're all going to die, you deserve to lose your position as an elected representative of the people. Because, yes, of course, dumbass, we are all going to die. Correct. But we're not all going to die because you took away health care. There are people who are going to die because you took away health care. This is what we're objecting to. You are doing the thing that is directly going to result in people dying, and you're saying, we're all going to die. Well, some people should die more quickly than others, but I want everybody to live as long as possible, and so I want health care and equality and due process and everything for even those individuals who are absolutely awful, absolutely terrible. And so there are people running against that person now. But she went on Instagram to do a fake apology, to talk about, I didn't know that people wouldn't realize that we were all going to die. I would have started by explaining things about the tooth fairy. And I want you all to know that I have a friend you should meet, and that's Jesus Christ. And so that if you do die, which we all will, you'll blah, 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 blah. So she's allowed to do that, by the way. You can be awful, and you can be a religious proselytizing dipshit on your personal Instagram all you want. And we can run people against you based on that all we want. Because what we want is for people to get healthcare and to get better. The sort of special treatment that she and others get, and that religious folks and religious organizations continue to get, is probably very likely going to be amplified in the coming years. John's coming on tonight to talk about the Ark encounter protest. For those who don't know, there's a great big partial replica of Noah's Ark in Williamstown, Kentucky. It's actually a building with an Ark facade stuck on the side of it. I've been there. Seth and I went down and with the group and visited. It's not worth the trip, and it's not worth the money. but they received all kinds of special treatment, and there are tons of problems with what they do, what they've done, and how they do it. Just from the Ark Encounter or protest page, I'm just going to run through these really quickly. The city of Williamstown sold 98 acres of land to Ark Encounter for $1. They also gave them $175,000 in cash. They reduced the property taxes for the Ark and that land, and they issued $62 million in unsecured junk bonds to finance the Ark's construction. 75% of the Ark Encounter's property taxes go to repaying bonds instead of funding local schools, emergency services, and infrastructure. There is a weird employee wage deduction. So Ark Encounter employees must pay 2% of their wages towards the bond debt for the next 30 years. So it's like an extra tax on their workers. The Kentucky Transportation Cabinet spent $11 million to upgrade I-75 exits in anticipation of a tourism boom that has yet to materialize. And Answers in Genesis claims that the Ark is worth $130 million on federal tax forms when they're seeking loans. But the Grant County Property Tax Office assesses the Ark's value at just $48 million, reducing its tax contributions to the community. There are other problems with employment discrimination and the scientific misinformation that they're putting out. Don't get me wrong, I'm upset that they're putting out scientific misinformation. I don't find that putting out scientific misinformation is something that they shouldn't necessarily be allowed to do. They get to proselytize their religion, they get to give their religious view, but they shouldn't be doing anything in that realm with public money, with special gifts and dispensations for them, with reduced taxes. This is not. I don't think churches should get a default tax exempt status anyway. I think they should have to open their books. I don't think you should have a nonprofit that gets to keep their books hidden. And that's what happens with religions. And I don't know to what extent Answers in Genesis and the Ark Encounter qualify as a religious organization. I don't think that they are both 501c3s, but they could be. But what they're basically doing is creating a little amusement park that is not good, where it costs them next to nothing. They get ages to pay it back. They get to engage in employment discrimination. They are not doing anything really to benefit the community in any substantive way. And this is time, space, and money that could have better been used for things in the real public interest, like, I don't know, a library, an actual science facility to educate people. It could have gone to countering misinformation on the internet instead of spreading misinformation out here in the meat space. So tonight, joining me to talk a little bit about the speakers, what he's doing, and everything else, John Gleason, otherwise known as Godless Engineer. How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty excited for the Ark Encounter protest. This is actually my first my first real speaking gig. I'm not getting paid or nothing, obviously. It's purely volunteer, but I was asked to come and say a few words and whatnot. And so immediately, as soon as I was asked, I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to, actually speak on? So I kind of started writing something that I thought was important, to mention about the Ark Encounter. And so I'm currently in the process of getting that written, and I should have that ready by the time that we're doing the protest. But for anybody out there it's just wondering, so it's the Tri-State Freethinkers, Recovering from Religion, Black Non-Believers, and a bunch of other people have come together to help put this protest on, along with I believe it's a Kentucky atheist. He's organizing a lot of this, and it's on Sunday, July 6th, 2025, and I believe it's between 1 and 5 p.m. in Williamstown, Kentucky. It's near exit 154 of Interstate 75. And it's in walking distance of the Ark Encounter entrance. So there's a lot of people that's going to be showing up there. Obviously, I'm going to be there, and I think I'm going to have about a 10-minute block, I believe, in order to have. In order to communicate what we want to communicate. But there's also a lot of great people that are going to be showing up. Like Arden Raw is going to be there, obviously. I don't know if anybody knows who Chris Mallard is, but he does the daily morning atheist show over there. But he's going to be speaking. There's a skeptic. If anybody out there is a skeptic fan, Mandisa Thomas is going to be speaking. Mark Alsip is going to be speaking. Secular Rarity is going to be there, as well as me. And I'm not sure who else is going to be speaking at that. That's just who I know. But I haven't been able to make it to an Ark Encounter protest yet, but I've been very vocal about how bad of a I guess trying to think of what to appropriately call it. It's a Christian theme park. How bad it is and how misrepresented, how much it misrepresents, just everything. I've been there too. I've went through the entire arc, and it's so ridiculous. Like how they explain how they, and empty. It was very empty when we were there. But like how they explain how they managed all of the poop that was generated, like that's ridiculous. And like they have so many ridiculous, animal structures. Like they have cages where they actually put what they think are kinds in there. But like one of the things that really stuck with me was at the Ark Encounter, they have an animal that is a kind that apparently is connected to whales, but at the same time, I mean, whales would have been in the water, right? Or like would the water on the earth been like some kind of weird salty mixture where salty freshwater mixture where whales couldn't survive? I don't know, but like they had an animal that was a precursor to a whale, and it was apparently in a cage on the ark. And in order to contain all the kinds on the ark, the cages were way too big for them and everything, and so they just got crazy reasons for all that. But it is very important for us to make our voices known. And like one of the things that I'm focusing on as far as my speech goes is connecting this Ark Encounter amusement park to the Christian nationalism that we're seeing, because like up there on in Congress and in Washington, D.C., you have so many different Christian nationalists that are pushing for, teaching creationism in schools. And being from North Alabama, they are actively trying to promote the idea or normalize the idea down here about, teaching the controversy kind of thing. They shy away from real science, and they don't want to touch on anything that could offend someone's religious sensibilities, which, I don't really care about if I offend someone's religious sensibilities, but
what?
I know. Big surprise for me, right?
Let them clutch their pearls.
But it's going to be a great time. Like I said, I'm going to be there. I think I'm getting in on like maybe Friday or Saturday, something like that. And, just sort of hanging out and everything. And then we'll be there through the weekend, through the protests and everything. We'll probably go back sometime on Monday, but it's going to be a great time. I hope to see a lot of people there. And if you are going and you see me there, definitely come up and say hi. I always love meeting people that know me from like the internet, because it's kind of like putting a real person to like an online persona. And I'm pretty much the same guy in real life as I am on camera and on stream and everything like that. I usually turn it up a little bit when I'm on stream, but not much.
So one minor correction. I don't think Aaron Ra is going to be there. I think he was originally booked, but had to drop. I haven't talked to him, but when they contacted me, They mentioned that. And so what's listed right now is you, Hemet, Chris Mallard, Skeptic, Mandisa, Secular Rarity, Mark Alsip, and Durante Lamar. So there's going to be like three or four people that you've seen at least on the line in some capacity. So that's going to be good. But yeah, I don't think Aaron's going to be there. But
Okay, yeah. Sorry, I pulled down their media kit and I was kind of reading. I took the list of people that they had on their media kit because it's been a while since I've checked like who's going to be there.
yeah, I don't know if this is a new development or what. So, but you know, when this first happened, I did go and I visited the Ark Encounter. I was ultimately disappointed. Mainly, I think in how much they were comfortable charging for how little anybody is likely to get out of it. That to me was wild. Because it was, and I didn't pay for it, but it was not cheap. I mean, I get it's probably not Disney prices or anything, but it's not even like one Disney ride worth of, information and everything. And it's like, it's huge printed out posters. It's like somebody created a website, printed out the website, stuck it to the wall, created a couple of displays with some decent, figures, and then made it with, really good woodwork, to make it look proper. But it is really weird. And I don't know where the dinosaurs were.
Yeah. Well, what another thing that stuck out to me is that as you enter into the Ark Encounter and you start going through their exhibits, they have like this sign up, and if you look at the sign at the very end of the blurb on the sign, it says, "There have been some artistic liberties taken," and that made me laugh, like right there in the middle of the Ark, like, oh no shit, artistic liberties.
It is absolutely wild. So we had fun with it, but also I was, when we were down there, I've never been to the AIG kind of creation museum. That's another part of this. I mean, Answers in Genesis owns both of them, and this is Ken Ham. And when we got there, like everything else, you exit through the gift shop, and there's all kinds of. I mean, the gift shop had more stuff in it than all the rest of the Ark, as far as like diversity and everything, plushies, this and little books and videos and all this stuff. And so I asked them if Ken Ham was around, because I'd love to talk to him. And they were like, "Oh no, he's not here." And I was like, "Is he over at the Creation Museum?" And they're like, "I'm not sure if he's in the Creation Museum or not." And I was like, "Well, let him know I stopped by." And without missing a beat, because it was clear that whoever I was talking to already knew who I was. Because they gave me that look when I walked up, and I was like, and so I just introduced myself, and I was like, "Hi, I'm Matt Dillahunty. I do this atheist content. Is Ken Ham around?" No, he's not. That's fine.
Matt, you're free to give that kind of information. I usually try to sneak past. I'm like, "Hi, yeah, I've seen Kent everywhere. I'd love to see him." And I wouldn't even mention like the whole atheist thing. I try to sneak into it.
It was fun, actually. Aaron and another person whose name I won't mention because they're shitty, and myself and several other people went to a mega church, Joel Osteen's mega church in Houston. And the other guys had never been to a mega church like this, didn't know much about it. We're not really church going people prior to getting involved in the atheist community. And so they're like, "Oh, we can take this video camera and hide it underneath our coat and walk in and do this, and we'll be able to get some stealth footage." And I was like, "Why?" They're going to let you in and give you a tour of this place. They welcome people to come in, and you're free to record. There's nothing to hide. "Well, if they found out, who we were or why we were there, they'd kick you out." And I'm like, I really doubt that. So I just walked up and we went on the tour, and I'm openly filming stuff, and it was nothing. And they're like, "Oh yeah." I was like, "You guys, there are people within the atheist community especially some lifelong atheists, especially people coming from non-standard Christian denominations and something just outside of that, who really don't get what it's like to be a part of like a Baptist church, a Methodist church. The whole thing is it's open and you're welcoming people, and that's what you're supposed to be doing. And because everybody there is convinced that they're there for a good purpose to do good things, it's just, yes, come on in. Let's show you around, and we'll feed you. You know, I remember a debate I did here at Austin Baptist Church. They've got a great facility, a great church, and it's just like they pretty much have a donut shop attached to the church in the cafeteria, because they've got a big auditorium that holds maybe 1,000 to 1,500 people, and people show up on Sunday morning and they're going to need what? Coffee and donuts. They're going to show up for debate. They're going to want coffee and donuts. So there's this big kind of open cafeteria, and you just walk in, and somebody's paying for all this, but it's just open for everybody.
Yeah,
all right.
I definitely wasn't afraid to like videotape stuff. Although there is a section where it's got like a video that plays and like does stuff, and so like that's like copyrighted kind of content. But other than that, like they're pretty freely giving, like as far as like being able to take pictures and everything like that. Like they definitely want people to be like spreading pictures of the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter online. So they're definitely fine with that. And I totally get what you're saying about like the Baptist stuff. I mean, do you know that crazy ass pastor, Pastor Greg Locke?
I don't know him personally, but I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. He's invited me to 2 separate churches that are near me that he was speaking at, and like everybody was always friendly, even when they knew that I was like an atheist, content creator and everything like that. Like they were happy, to be there, and like they wouldn't answer any of my questions, but like they were happy for me to be there and everything. And so like that was rather interesting. Of course, mind you, like that was before Greg Locke like went really freaking crazy, like with the whole conspiracy theory stuff, and he became like a really big shithead. He was only just a little bit of a shithead at the time, and he just leaned totally into the whole shithead thing. After that, like I just like I had been slated to like actually do like an in-person event with him, like where we would have a discussion or a debate or something like that. But after he started going fucking crazy, I was like, no, I'm not doing that with you. Like I have standards.
So one of the other videos, I'm not going to give too much information. I'm working on this in the near future. Basically, there was a group of people. They have a ministry. They reached out to Nick Fish, the president of American Atheist, asking if he would be willing to do a debate at their apologetics conference. Nick was not interested, but said he would find them somebody who might be, and sent me the information. I contacted them, let them know, hey, what's going on, and be happy to see if I can make this fit in my schedule, whatever else. A month goes by and I don't hear anything. And then one of them messages to say, hey, thanks for replying, but we've decided to go in a different direction. Do you know any young, energetic, up-and-coming atheists who would be interested in doing this? And you'll have to watch the video to find out what happened from there, because my first thought was, are they just saying I'm too old? But as it turns out, it's much worse than that. Despite the fact that I have debated in churches and been invited back, at apologetic conferences and been invited back, and at universities, and I've been asked to debate across the pond and all kinds of stuff. They decided to focus on one particular debate that I did and use that to try to disqualify me, while also saying, anyway, it's going to be a fun video, because I was like, these people don't owe me a job or anything else, but I'm not going to go find you, let me reach out to, whoever's up and coming. Hey, you should go talk to these. Just tell me what's going on. I'm not going to recommend somebody to you guys if you don't value integrity, and if you're not looking for expertise. So you can go talk to modern day debates. I'm sure they can find you some basement dwelling atheist that nobody knows, and you can bring them up to your conference. So we've got a couple calls on the queue. Both are atheists. If you're a theist and want to call in and defend what you believe and why, great. And you're picking a good time because John's, with a couple of minor exceptions, pretty much in charge of the mute button and directing things here as well. So if you're just like, oh, I don't want to talk to that Matt dude, cool, you don't have to, or at least not much, maybe a little bit. But I'm in full on Zen mode, and we'd love to get some theist callers. We'd love to get somebody to call in who thinks that it was right for the government of Kentucky to bend over backwards and get so much favoritism and preferential treatment directed at answers in Genesis and the Ark encounter, and why that continues to happen. If you think the atheists that are protesting this are wrong, call in and defend why. But here we go to start it off with. Robin's calling from Kentucky who wants to talk about the Ark protest. So, hey, Robin, pronouns she, her, you're on with Matt and John. How are you?
Hello, Matt. Hello, John. Yes, I'm I'm connected with the Kentucky Atheist channel that's sitting on the protest, and I'm just really excited for all the people that are going to come. I'm just going to say that there's a website where anybody can go. I think it's www.arkprotest.com.
Yep.
It's on the Kentucky Atheist channel. You can go there. They've got discounts on the motel rooms if you want to book motel rooms through that thing. So you can get a little discount. And I've learned that there's going to be like some Christian visitors too that are going to be there. So it might be interesting. Like I think Kent Hovind and his crew are coming up, and I heard that some of the Christian bikers are planning to attend. So,
wow.
I don't know.
Oh yeah. Shit!
And Ham and Kent Hovind in the same place at the same time. People are going to be so confused.
I thought that. Yeah, they don't like each other, so I thought that would be interesting. Yeah, if we could get them, like, I think.
Well, yeah, Ken Ham, he runs multiple different attractions that educates kids into ignorance, while Kent Hovind just runs one that kills kids. So there's a stark difference there in harm, I guess.
Yeah. I'd love for everybody to come, because we're trying to make this the biggest one so far. I've been to one, and the time that I was at the protest, my mom and my sister actually came to the Ark to visit it that day too. So it was really fun.
Oh, nice.
But I live in Kentucky, so my tax money has probably went to that big non-floating boat, and I hate it.
Yeah.
And I am going to be dressed as Pebbles, Flintstones. So
oh, nice.
Come see me.
Nice. I didn't know there was a possibility of good costumes. Have you got a Bam Bam going with you?
I tried to get Joe to be Bam Bam. I haven't talked him into it yet, but he said
well, let me tell you,
hot for costumes.
Yeah, like Bam Bam's costume wouldn't be all that hot. It's kind of open. It's like a little toga-esque strap thing. If I were going, I like the idea so much, I'd go as your Bam Bam, Robin.
Oh, that's so cool, Matt. I just really have always wanted the opportunity, and not going to miss it, to wear a bone in my hair.
Oh, see? And I don't have any hair to wear a bone in, but, I appreciate it. Well, thanks for touching base with us, Robin.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing John and everybody there. So.
Sweet. John, are you dressing up for it?
Oh, I might, because I could bring Brocephus along, and just because hearing about how many people are coming that are going to be Christians and everything like that. Might want to set up like a table and do some kind of street epistemology stuff or something like that. But I could also be a Brocephus and try to be devil's advocate, I guess. Although I'm not a good actor. because like even as Brocephus, I can't sit there and be like, yeah, the Earth is 6,000 years old. Like I don't know. I feel bad about that.
It's actually, I wouldn't mind having fun with those sorts of things. It's I get frustrated because we have great opportunity to try to make the world better, and what I'm seeing just kind of across the board is that the truth and reality aren't winning, even when they should obviously be winning. And so you look at something like this ARC thing. I get that they're primarily preaching to the choir, but that's also how you get the choir to sing. And it's also how you keep the choir participating. And so tax dollars aren't just going to prop up religious ideas. Those religious ideas are being spun in a way to prop up more religious ideas and more religious voting. And if now that it's established, if anything were to happen where the government changes the tax status of this or puts the ARC encounter at risk or anything like that, they're not at risk of losing votes from the people who want to support the ARC encounter, the people who don't understand the separation of religion and government, the people who think we should be doing this everywhere. We need to get prayer back in schools. We need to do this. It is difficult trying to navigate this particular world that we're in. If the tools that we thought we could rely on of, okay, let's make a valid argument, demonstrate that the premises are reasonable, show the evidence to back that stuff up, and then say this is the most reasonable expectation of reality, this is what's going on. But no, it's like the president of the United States is sharing a batshit crazy conspiracy theory that Joe Biden was killed in 2020 and replaced with clones and robots. And I'm like, I feel like the kid in the back seat of the car coming out from anesthesia. Like, is this real life? And everything that we said was going to be happening with regard to Project 2025 and what they're going after, it's still happening. We're still on track for all of that. I'm, it almost feels like protesting the ARC encounter isn't enough. Like, and couldn't ever be enough. The stuff that's going on is just, a friend of mine posted that support for same-sex marriage by party between 2000 and 2025. That's what the chart looks like. And the Republican one is on decline and is the lowest it's been since like 2013, 2014, something like that. It's not a surprise that it's always been lower, but there's a backlash. And while everybody else is moving towards a better world, and these people have clearly, some of them are still pissed that we allowed gay people to get married. Some of them are still pissed that a black man got elected president. And they're ganging up, essentially, to wreak their revenge. It is liberal tears. We got a caller from Spain that has a question for us. So Rob's gone. Pronounce him wants to talk about humanist organizations running political candidates. How are you, Rob?
Hey, Matt. Hey, John. Yeah, thanks for taking my call. First of all, I feel it's a good segue, actually. I love that last caller. And it kind of moves into this, what you're saying. I can't understand why. I mean, I know you're part of the Humanist organization, Matt. Sorry, would you mind clarifying what role you have, or do you any part of it?
I don't have a role in any humanist organization.
Oh, okay. I was mistaken there, but
I'm not aware that any humanist organization is. And sorry, I'm going to say this, and this isn't for you, Rob. This is for everybody else out there. I'm going to say this flat out. And if somebody wants to call in on behalf of a humanist organization to correct the record, please feel free. I've been in this community for decades. I am on the board of directors for American Atheists. I have run local organizations. I've been a part of national organizations. I get invited to speak at Christian organizations and apologetics events. I get invited to speak at atheist events. I get invited to speak at skeptic events. I get invited to speak at the Secular Student Alliance events. I've almost never been approached or asked to speak by any humanist organization on the planet. I have not been involved with any significant humanist organization on the planet. I don't see them doing anything. I don't see them having any significant events or working to promote particular values. The broader atheist community is promoting humanism, I would say, more frequently and better than any humanist organization I'm aware of. So you're asking basically, Rob, why aren't humanist organizations running political candidates? And for all I know, they are, but we don't hear about it. And here we are. I mean, is there some humanist platform that gets more views and has more reach for, a secular humanist audience than a number of the atheist channels that are here? I'm not convinced that, humanism exists and humanist organizations exist. What the fuck are they doing? I don't know.
It's exactly my question, my friend. Yeah, where the fuck are they? What's going on? I mean, there are prominent atheists. I mean, besides this channel, I love this channel. I love what you guys do. But I look at, and I know you know these guys, Matt, and I look at Dawkins and Sam Harris, and I think, well, these guys aren't humanists. I mean, they're supporting a fucking genocide right now. They're shitting on trans community. They have no respect for the human rights of a massive population of the world. And I'm looking at the likes of, I love US politics. I love to keep up with it. I'm looking at the likes of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, who are Muslims, and they're doing a hell of a lot more for any humanist sort of agenda than any secular organization. Where is the secular political will? Where is the secular political groups that decide to get into the mess, to get into the muck, to get into the UK politics, the US politics? Here in Spain, I don't see any sort of prominent political movement for an atheist. And you don't have to be atheist and say fuck all religions, we hate religion. You can be atheist and say, listen, you have the right to your religion, you have the right to your prayer. Bernie Sanders and AOC are doing their Fight the Oligarchy tour. Not once have they said tax the fucking church. What's going on? Where are these people? Sorry, that was my rant.
Well, so specifically, like here in America, there is a little bit of concern because of the 501c3 status, because the tax exempt organizations can't be seen as endorsing or dissuading people from any particular political candidate or anything. So I don't think that you're going to find any tax exempt organization out there that's going to be endorsing a candidate because that would be a violation, and they'd probably get their tax exempt status taken away. Now, right. I don't know if there's a for-profit humanist organization out there that could do it, but if there was, then they could endorse. And my wife KC in the chat there mentioned that I'm going to be having Fish Stark on my channel, who's the executive director of the American Humanist Association, to speak on things that are pertinent to the humanist humanist cause, and part of that is going to be somewhat political. So I mean, it's not that they don't speak on political matters, but as far as a very specific topic of endorsing candidates or speaking out against, sorry, what was that, Matt?
I was just saying, I was agreeing. Sorry, that they can't do that.
Yeah. So I mean,
And they
feel
can't
like
run their own candidates.
right, exactly. And so you'll probably hear less about humanists like talking about political candidates, or not candidates, but political topics and whatnot. But I think that's just probably because they haven't really had very good, like outreach in that particular regard. The atheist sort of effort out there, like strictly atheist effort, has been a lot more vocal, with like the atheist.org, American Atheist, that organization, like a lot of people have heard of, as well as plenty of other organizations out there. And more secular organizations also are a lot more vocal. So I just think that maybe their messaging has been a little off. I know Fish Stark, who's like I said, the executive director of the American Humanist Association, he was at Free Flow this year speaking on a lot of pertinent topics. And so I think that you'll probably see more humanist, speakers and people speaking on that particular topic coming out, just because like I know Fish Stark over there at the AHA is kind of a somewhat of a new hire. He came into the organization and everything kind of fresh, and so I think that you'll be seeing a little bit more of that. But I think that there's probably fewer humanist organizations out there for you to actually hear from, as compared to the more secular or the more atheist organizations.
Yeah, John's completely right. And as somebody who used to run a 501c3 nonprofit organization, I can go back to the things that I used to say, which is that we wouldn't be allowed to endorse candidates, but we are absolutely allowed to discuss issues and talk about our perspective on those issues. We can't tell people how to vote in a party thing, but we can produce voters guides. When I ran the atheist community of Austin, we produced voters guides. We polled everyone running for office in Texas, and we just did it as an informative thing because we don't think that our issues and positions on our most important issues were being addressed as much as they should be by people running for office. And so we put out we at our own expense mailed out stuff. We got some answers back. Primarily, it was a bunch of libertarians. Most of the rest of the people on Republican, Democrat, Green, et cetera, just kind of ignored us. But what it did was it allowed us to put together voting guides so that we can, not say, here's who you should vote for, but here's what these people's positions are on these issues. And then we didn't even have to include what our position was, because the ACA had a list of position statements, which was available on the website. So these organizations, despite being nonprofits, they can't endorse candidates and they can't endorse parties, but they can give their position on issues, and they can do voter guides, and they can work towards church-state separation, and they can educate the public. And what I'm seeing is they're not. And by the way,
No.
full open disclosure, I'm a board member of American Atheist. I'm more than a little irritated at them as well for not making use of these big platforms that we have to promote the American Atheist Convention or what's going on there. We're constantly trying to, we're going to reach out. I'll message Nick or somebody and be like, hey, what's going on? We get somebody on for the show. We can promote this kind of thing. It seems like there's a huge chunk of media that can reach people. And most of the organizations, atheist, skeptic, humanist, all of them, aren't making good enough use of this. And instead, we're having places like The Line where we're getting information out, we're having call-in shows, we're interacting. And then there's a bunch of secular YouTubers who, I don't think it's any surprise, they don't have a great deal of respect for, let me chase the algorithm and make money and not actually educate, but merely just mock religion. That, I'm not, you're probably reaching some people there. That's not what I do. And it's not what I need. But so, yeah, it'd be nice to see humanist organizations. But to answer your strict question, John is completely right. they can't put up their own candidate and endorse their candidate. And so that's why you don't see that.
Right. Okay. I mean, you mentioned about non-profit organizations. I mean, is the church exempt from that? Is that on a different thing? Because I see them endorsing people all the time. That
you don't.
Lunatic. Who is that lunatic? You can't be a Democrat and be a Christian.
That's not endorsing. That's not endorsing a candidate. So there are some that do it, and when they do, they often face a pushback from the IRS and other things on, hey, we'll take your tax exempt status if you don't stop this. The biggest problem now is that they're going to be able to do it more and more with less pushback than ever before.
Yeah.
And this is just going to help Project 2025. But currently, under the law, they are not allowed to endorse candidates either. They can sit there all day long and say, you can't be a Christian and a Democrat, but they're not allowed to endorse candidates.
Wow. Crazy legislation rules you have over there, man. One quick question about, I mean, are there any Congress members? Do you know of any, even in local offices, are there any that will proudly say they're atheist and that they don't worship? Because I just don't. I see a sort of glass ceiling that needs to be broken in the United States, where not just the US, the UK as well, where somebody needs to come out and say, "I'm an atheist." They don't have to diss any of the religions. Sorry, go ahead.
The answer is yes. There have been a couple, not very many. And what tends to happen is the Secular Coalition for America, as soon as they identify anybody in the House or the Senate or in significant positions of government who are willing to say, I'm secular, they jump on it, they get them to speak at events. And it's really, it's not normalized. Are there probably a ton of closeted secularists in government? Oh yeah, no doubt about it. I've spoke to some of them. And as it stands, even 10, 15 years ago, it was not politically wise to be running as an open secularist. It's absolute suicide politically, career-wise, for that job to do it now.
Yeah, there's actually political campaigns where they run on claiming that their opponent is either secretly an atheist or they're not as religious as they feel like they should be. So, I mean, that's definitely a thing that happens here. Right. Well, I haven't heard the Satanist claim just yet. That I feel like in this particular respect, Satanists would actually be worse than calling somebody an atheist. But so there is a congressional free thought caucus. Where I don't know if all the members have to be like atheist or secular in nature, but they're all very much dedicated to like a separation of church and state and those kind of values. And I mean, it's got a pretty hefty list here. Like I believe Jared Huffman from California and Jamie Raskin are part of it. And the Rashida Tlaib that you were talking about a second ago, she's also in it. So like, there's plenty of people that are definitely fighting for the separation of church and state, but also fighting for like a more free thought America, free thought in America. And so you do have, those particular coalitions, but they are incredibly small, especially when you compare them to like the conservative Christians and like their whole, I'm sure there's one or more faith caucuses or something like that. I mean, Donald Trump has that faith office where he's got that charlatan, Paul White.
That crazy bin who does the speaking in tongues, his faith advisor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she runs the faith office now. So like she's in a pretty key position in the White House currently.
I mean, I feel like this is a opportune time for like a real, I mean, you guys know your country better than me, but I just feel like there's a political will for a huge fight back. I mean, Bernie and AOC are pulling in massive crowds. And if
Yeah,
you could
but
tie
that's
in a huge separation, if Bernie and AOC went further than just saying oligarchy and said church, if they just said tax the oligarchy, tax the
they would
church, would
lose
that be political
everything.
suicide?
They would
Or
lose everything. It would be absolute disaster.
you think?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay.
I know. So one of the things is
Okay.
I love Bernie. I love AOC. I love shit. Arden can correct me. Kat Abigazala.
Yep.
Oh, she's amazing.
Yay.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
you know, there's tons of people in office, Jasmine Crockett and others. I mean, I don't agree with all of them on everything, but they're great. When you see, oh, they're doing great numbers. Yes, there's a backlash, and they are using that to potentially build some momentum. Right now, Pete Buttigieg is polling better even than AOC, and that guy is brilliant and competent, which means he'll probably never be elected to any office, and he should be elected to the highest office. But the thing is, you cannot make this about religion. For whatever reason, the backlash has made that, in my view, and I could be wrong. I'd love to find out that I'm wrong. But in my view, it's absolutely impossible. If you go after we tried saying, look, this is Project 2025. They're implementing right-wing, fascist, Christian nationalism right in front of your face, and they still won. And so you're seeing the frustrated people happily going out and, yay, we're with Bernie and AOC, oligarchy bad, fascism bad. And then the people feel like they now feel better, and they feel like they've done something, and they've done fuck all. But you need to keep doing that, because eventually that sort of interaction where you're not actually accomplishing anything is going to coincide with getting someone elected somewhere. But if Bernie were to come out and say, you know, the 1% really needs to be taken on, and I'm a godless heathen, I'm an atheist, I'm a secularist, any phrasing of that, we need to stand up against Project 2025 and the church. He's done. The country has demonstrated it's not ready for left. It's not ready for left of center. It is definitely not ready for anything that stands up against Christian nationalism and religious privilege. We have a lot of work to do to get it there, and I don't know what the path is. I'm with Bernie. I'm with AOC. I'm, you know, with all of them. I don't understand it. I literally every day I wake up and I'm like, am I being punked? Am I in a simulation? None of this shit makes any sense. So while I share your idealism, I don't share the optimism that now is a ripe time to strike from a secular perspective. I think it may be a ripe time to strike from a humanist perspective, but not necessarily with that label.
Sure. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, thanks for your insight, guys. I mean, it's strange here because here in Spain, everyone knows Spain's a pretty Catholic country. You know, we've got churches everywhere, church bells ringing all day, every day. But the youth here, the younger people, I teach in a university, and 90% of the people 18 to 24 are either mildly religious but extremely secular in their views on, they're sort of agnostic, sort of believing, but they're not Catholics or devout Christians in any way whatsoever. And we just don't have this issue yet. In the USA, the land of the free, it's a strange place you guys live in. Anyway, thanks for your insight, guys. It was really nice talking to you on this.
Yep. Thanks, Rob. Cheers. Be safe. Yeah, we live in a strange world, John. We live in a strange country. And honestly,
yeah.
What surprised me the most, what I thought I was leveraging in talking about politics from like 2014 on, is I suspected that religion was aging away and that the youth were generally more progressive, more secularist, more lefty, more pro-gay rights, more, all these things. And there's been this weird backlash where the youth are moving right. But they're moving right in a way that they not that they used to be. This isn't a fiscal thing. It's a hateful thing. It is.
Yeah.
It is taking their privilege and sticking a megaphone on it and saying, oh, well, I'm doing all right. You guys need to pay your way. Well, I'm sorry that mommy and daddy gave you the sort of life where you didn't learn empathy, where you didn't learn compassion, where you didn't learn what it meant to struggle, where you didn't understand that perhaps you, as little Cindy Lou Who, aren't going to be treated the same by police officers that my friend Durante might be. I'm sorry that they didn't give you a sense of compassion and empathy so that you could recognize sometimes, even for the best people, even for people who are part of your little community, they fall through the cracks. They go into medical debt. They go into medical bankruptcy. I'm sorry that you don't understand that not everybody who's brown is here illegally, or that you should be considering that sort of thing at all. I'm sorry that you don't care or understand what due process is. I'm sorry that you don't seem to know or care anything about science. I'm sorry that we built an internet and shoved TikTok videos at you until you are too fucking stupid to vote competently and to understand anything. You can't string a goddamn sentence together. You can't make a coherent, cogent thought. The only reason I'm not giving up is because I watched some incredible young people going up against Jordan Peterson. Now, granted, while he's a big fish in the sense of draws views, he's very, very, very low hanging. He's the second lowest hanging fruit in the apologetics tree. And he might be the lowest if you could understand what he was saying, because at least you can understand Ray Comfort, who is really down there as the lowest hanging fruit. All right. We have more atheist callers and everything. So here we go. Maureen's calling from Canada, wants to, what's humanism? Hey, Maureen, pronounce she, her. You're on with John and Matt.
Hi, Matt and John. Yeah, I have a question about what a humanist is, but I'd like to make a comment about what Matt just said about the young people running to the right. I think the GOP are very good at making these people feel like they're a victim, and that all these other groups are, that claim to be victims and actually are victims of stuff, are taking the attention away from them. I think that's part of it. I think they're very good at telling these people, you're the real victim.
That's very interesting. John?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the GOP has really leaned into the propaganda, and part of the propaganda, especially like you see it on blatant display with this one big beautiful bill, which I can't believe it's actually called that, but you see the propaganda of them saying, oh, like Mike Johnson just today was like, this is for the working class. This one big beautiful bill is going to make it better for the working class, when in reality, it only hurts the working class. It only hurts lower income people. It only benefits those that are making, so much a year. And so like, it just simply does not benefit, but it doesn't stop them from pumping out the propaganda and convincing people that, hey, we are doing this for you. And I think that they've just really been, on point as far as the propaganda goes in order to convince, the younger crowd, at least the younger crowd that has become convinced by them. I don't think that this younger crowd really understands like the history behind the GOP and, really understands, I guess critical thinking skills, because anybody that can objectively look at like what are the effects of this bill? What is this bill actually doing? If you were to actually analyze it without all the propaganda in your ear, you would be able to understand how bad it is for everybody. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is against it, but only because she feels like it's stripping away states' rights because of, AI, like saying that, states can't make laws regarding AI. And that's the only reason why she's not behind that bill. It's not for any good practical reason, like, ripping away Medicare, Medicaid from 14 million Americans, or the fact that it's going to raise taxes on the lower and working poor. It's just so ridiculous to think that anybody that knows how to think critically about these kinds of things can actually be convinced by the propaganda coming out, but they allow themselves to do it. And so I just think that the GOP has really honed in on spreading that propaganda in a way that will make the younger crowd not think, using those thought stopping techniques that you get from like cults and religion in general. And I think that, that's pretty much how, they've convinced the younger base that they have.
Also, I think I blame Joe Rogan for helping make the world way stupider. Joe is an idiot who has people on that don't get challenged despite his attempt to have fact checkers on there. He just sits there and get baked and, I'll promote Musk and Trump and whatever else. Has no clue about pretty much anything. So, if he has Neil deGrasse Tyson on one day and Neil teaches him some stuff, I bet you if you quiz Joe, he's not going to remember it, a week afterwards. I remember when he said the moon landing was fake until Phil Plait went on the show to correct him. I don't know how this guy's got the most popular podcast on the planet, because all it is, hey, let's get high and let people say stuff without really challenging them. We're not educating people. We're just throwing shit tons of information out as if information is now entertainment, whether it's true or not.
Oh, I agree with that. Yeah, he likes to pretend he's down the middle, but he's not. He's really taken on the right. And another thing about the right is Republicans have always lied about being fiscally, responsible. They never are.
Yeah.
They always outspend, and that's another part of it. And I think they lie to the youth, and the youth don't see that they're the reason why your wages aren't up. They're the reason why there aren't more unions. They're the reason why, you can't afford things. And it's like nobody wants to really pound them on that and say, you guys always lie about the economy.
I've pointed it out half a dozen times. You want to talk about fiscal responsibility? Which presidents increased the debt? Which presidents increased the deficit? Reagan increased it $74 billion. Bush Sr. increased it $400 billion. Bush Jr. increased it $1.5 trillion. And Trump has increased the deficit $7.8 trillion. Then you say, okay, how'd the Democrats do? Well, Clinton decreased the deficit $236 billion, leaving us with a surplus. Obama decreased the deficit $825 billion. Biden decreased the deficit $1.4 trillion. Biden decreased the deficit more than Obama and Clinton combined by about $400 billion. And it is wild to me that they get, the Democrats, they'll just spend on anything. And it's just, the Republicans are tax cuts for the rich and fuck the poor. And let's just blow up the deficit. And when we lose, the Democrats will spend all of their time trying to fix the deficit and all the shit we broke. And just about the time they get it back to where it's reasonable, then we'll claim something about them again and take over again. It is a cycle of stupidity. And I understand why people don't want to play in that cycle anymore. But you don't have a choice, because if you don't participate in trying to fix that cycle, you are accepting the status quo and giving up.
Yeah, I agree there. One thing about the Democratic presidents you mentioned, did they end up having both Republican or mostly Republican Congresses they had to deal with? So they had to make deals. Whereas now you see the situation where Trump just does what he wants because there's nobody to push back on him, really. So do you
Yep.
think that's part of how the government has to work? You have to have both parties in there to argue things out, make deals.
I think that in the practical aspect of reality, that's going to be a necessary evil for quite a while. But no, I don't think it's essential. I think you could move both parties further left. The problem is we seem to keep moving both parties further right. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, my other
But
question was about humanists. I don't even know what that is, really.
so I would recommend going to AmericanHumanist.org
Okay.
and also looking up the Humanist Manifesto. But essentially, secular humanism, here's my off the top of my head nutshell, and I'd like John to add, subtract, multiply, divide, whatever needs to happen from his perspective as well. Secular humanism is the recognition that whether or not there's a God, whether or not there's an afterlife, whether or not there's anything supernatural, human beings are here. We are stuck in this space and we need to interact. And so we have to find the best ways to interact. And we're going to rely on the best methods to determine, is something better for us or worse for us? We don't get to say, oh, God will fix it. We don't get to appeal to prayer. We say, we need to look at the data. We need to evaluate the consequences of our actions, both for ourselves and for our communities and at large, and begin with a few simple ideas that individual autonomy and sovereignty is foundational, and that we start with all rights and limit rights based on essential need for us to cooperate, so that I don't have a right to run around punching people because now I'm interfering with their space. That's essentially what humanism is to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
don't have anything to add or subtract from that. I thought that was pretty good. It's a lot more in depth than my understanding.
okay. I have one more question. I was wondering, there seems to be so many different groups it's so fractured over there. And a lot of these groups have a lot of commonalities that they want to see done. I mean, do you think that it's just too fractured, that some of these groups just can't come together because they want their special interest to be the top thing? I mean,
No,
it seems no. Okay.
no,
It's
there's been
a while.
there's been there's been fractures and divisions and other stuff, but there's also unity and coalition on a number of things. For example, I'm on the board of directors for American Atheists, but I have friends in countless other organizations: Freedom from Religion Foundation, Americans United for Church State Separation, which isn't a secular group, but is a I mean, the former leader is a preacher who was a kind of friend of mine. But then there's also the Secular Coalition for America, which unites a good chunk of those groups as our lobbyist organization. So what that allows us to happen is Freedom from Religion Foundation can focus on legal battles on our religious front. American Atheists can focus on normalizing atheism and fighting certain legal battles to defend the rights of atheists. The humanist organizations and the ethics organizations and others can focus in slightly different areas, but when there is something where all of our interests align, then there's something like the Secular Coalition for America, which is a joint lobby organization.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, I just there just seems to be so many issues, and they're all important. I mean, it just you kind of get overwhelmed, I guess, as to just what is it you're going to be able to do to convince people that you can't go far right like you are right now, that you've got to make a change. I mean,
Yep.
it just, even the Democratic Party itself, they just seem to be pulling at different ways instead of coming together. I
That's
mean,
because
that's
they're
what I
stupid.
yeah.
They're just less
Yeah,
stupid than the alternative. I'm not a Democrat. I support the Democrats because it's the better option with some viability.
I don't believe in belonging to a party. I think issues are what should you know, what you should go for, how somebody represents what you believe. And it could
Yep.
be somebody from another party if it's something, like fiscally, or you're just about rights of people. Um, it doesn't have to be a party. I think it can be a candidate that can just get you there, and it doesn't matter what party they belong to. But
In the U.S.,
yeah,
it might matter what party they belong to as to whether or not they're going to get enough attention. I'm sorry, John, go ahead. And Maureen, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let John wrap this up. And let's see. Did you have a question specifically for Maureen?
Oh, no, I mean, I was just gonna say that, like, I think that it definitely does matter which party you're a part of, because the GOP has become so radicalized that I think that the conservatives, now I'm not saying all Republicans necessarily, but I do think that exceptions are definitely the outliers here. Like a very small minority of Republicans wouldn't be part of this radicalized sort of GOP. But I think that the GOP has become so radicalized at this point that they're basically ushering in fascism with every decision that they make. I mean, they essentially want to consolidate all power under the executive, and with the fact that the Republicans control all three branches of our government, they're sitting there trying to deny that there's even three branches of government that have co-equal share of power. They're wanting to make the executive like control everything, and so it's almost like as soon as they've gotten into the position, they just want to forget all of everything that they've learned about how the government works. And I feel like it definitely does matter like which party they're in. Now, I'm not going to shit on anybody necessarily for like being gravitating towards independence, or as opposed to like Democrats, but I do feel like when we're talking about elections, if you're going to be voting for an independent, you're not necessarily voting for somebody that has a chance to win. And I think that in my opinion right now, feel free to disagree, whoever out there, but I feel like at this point, like it's literally a choice between retaining our democratic republic and falling victim to another fascist regime. Because like I feel like if you're going to vote, if you end up voting for an independent, I feel like that just diminishes the ability of a non-fascist to get into office. And it's not that I think that all independents have bad policies or anything like that, but I feel like the public at large just isn't behind independence enough to really make a difference, other than to pull votes away from a non-fascistic candidate. And so that's why I generally vote for Democrats. Not that my vote necessarily matters in a red state, like Alabama, but I still like I do my duty. I go, I vote at a church every single time, and I hope for the day when the purpliness of Alabama starts to show through. And I think that voting for an independent only diminishes that possibility in the future. So, like I said, I'm not going to shit on anybody for voting independent or thinking independents have a better platform or whatnot, but I feel like it is definitely a choice between fascism and retaining our democratic republic.
Maureen, I got to move on, but I appreciate all the thoughts.
Yeah. Well, thanks a lot for taking my call. Have a good night.
Oh,
You too.
man. So we had a
Oh,
theist
did
on the
we?
line that I was trying to get to. They had a personal experience they wanted to talk to us about. I was getting ready to put them on right this instant, and they dropped. So if you're that theist,
Damn,
call
I spoke
back.
too much.
You can't know. And if they were, if they were someone who had the time and the interest in actually digging in on something, they'll call back, or they would have hung on. Maybe they just got dropped. But it was interesting because they were saying they wanted to tell us about a personal experience. I think it was something tied to the notion of being separate from oneself, to see if we knew anything about that or had anything. If they don't call back, I might address it in an oblique way, because there's people who are way better at addressing that topic than I would ever be. So let's see. Well, this is interesting. Elijah's an agnostic calling from California. Pronouns are he, him. Elijah says it's logical to believe there's a God, even if you can't prove it. Hey, Elijah, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you guys?
I'm doing all right. I'm wondering, John, when you hear that it's logical to believe something, even if you can't prove it, what question comes to your mind for Elijah?
I don't see how it can be logical. Like, I guess I don't see the logical soundness of that, because like in my head, if we're thinking like from a pure syllogistic sort of argument, if you have premises that are not supported or not proven, then you don't have a sound logical argument. And if you can't prove your premise, then it seems like it would not be logically sound. So like, I guess I don't understand how it would be logical. Like, could you be justified in believing a God even if you can't prove it? Maybe, I don't know, but I mean, I definitely don't think that it's necessarily logical. Could you
Or maybe
maybe
we have
explain
confusion
that?
about what it means to prove. So yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
Elijah, what's
I
what's your justification for this thing that you're saying?
Yeah, I could see how that doesn't make sense, how it's confusing. But I just think, I mean, the Big Bang Theory. There's some evidence and some facts, some things we've seen that show that everything is moving out of a central point in the universe, and it
Well,
all kind
hold
of
on, Elijah.
exploded
I'm
out
so
of
sorry
one.
I'm so
Yeah.
right, Elijah. Sorry, I just want to interrupt real quick because just you said that there's some evidence of it, but I mean, like, it's not just like there's some evidence of like the planets moving away from us, or even redshift, which is kind of what you're referencing here. That's one aspect of it. But I mean, there's not just some evidence of the near instantaneous inflation of the universe. Like, you understand that we have a picture of it, right? Like, we literally have the cosmic microwave background radiation picture that shows, sometime after the inflation, but I mean, it's a picture of the inflation event as it happened. So like, it's not just
The
we have some indication that it's there, and so like it's not like it's somehow comparable to believing in God. I mean, we have mountains of evidence to like show that there was an inflation, and then other attributes surrounding that, like how did it happen, why did it happen, is it going to happen again, is this the only time that it happened? Like, those kind of questions, sure, we can't answer just yet definitively, but I feel like what we can definitively say is that, yeah, there was an inflation event at some point. Beyond that,
yeah,
we don't have good.
So what were you getting to?
There's overwhelming evidence that the Big Bang Theory is a thing that happened, right? But we don't know what came before that.
Okay.
And
So
I guess
if we
that's
don't know
my
something,
point.
if we don't know something, is it reasonable to believe an answer when you don't know?
I guess if you don't have any evidence, it's not reasonable to believe it.
So okay.
But I
when you say,
honestly,
I'm sorry, when there's a delay.
Yeah, no, I noticed that. I mean, I just think it's reasonable to believe that there is some kind of greater power that we could call God that
Fine.
just did something and put this whole universe into motion at the very beginning of time.
What
I think it's
what's
more
the
reasonable to
justification for
believe that
that?
something
What here,
created it.
hang on. We need to know what the justification is. I know that you think it's reasonable. I'm calling horseshit on that because when it comes to Big Bang cosmology, we're not even saying it's true. Science doesn't make proclamations of what's true. Science says, hey, we need to explain the expansion of the universe. And not only do we have a picture of the cosmic microwave background radiation, which perfectly matches a prediction of that model, but that model may not be completely correct and accurate, and we are currently refining it. But the math works out to 5.39 times 10 to the minus 44th of a second. So that's 0.44 zeros, 539 of 1 second. That's how far back to when the expansion started, how close we can get to it before the math breaks down. And beyond that, we can't really say anything. And so what justification can you have for saying prior to the Planck time, at a point where we have no ability to investigate, I'm going to go ahead and conclude that there was some being who did it on purpose?
I mean, I don't know if I could say the being did it on purpose, or maybe it's just that there was no other choice. I mean,
okay, how do you know it's a being?
I don't know it's a being.
Okay,
I don't think
is God a being?
Like, you know, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question.
Okay,
I kind of feel like God is
Elijah,
a little bit in everything.
Be honest. Let's be honest, Elijah. What you're doing is saying, here's something big that I don't know, and so I'm going to stick the God label there, and I'm not going to use the God of classical theism. I'm not going to claim to know anything about a God, and this will ease my conscience so that I don't have to acknowledge that I don't actually know the answer. So you're going to pretend that there's something there, maybe, and you're going to pretend that you're justified in calling it God, when the truth is you have no way of knowing anything at all about what comes prior to the Big Bang, or even if the sentence prior to the Big Bang makes any sense. But you are so uncomfortable with acknowledging that you don't know that you'd much rather just say, oh, I think it's reasonable to believe there's something that we might be able to call God that might have done it.
I guess that is what I'm saying. I mean, throughout history, different groups of people around the world, they make up ideas of a god or gods to explain things that they don't understand, right?
Yes, which is what you're doing.
It's sort of illogical.
And doing that, Elijah. That's what you're doing, except that your God doesn't do.
That is what I'm doing.
Elijah, let me finish. That's what you're doing, except your God can't explain anything. See, we explain things in terms of other things that we understand. You cannot solve a mystery by appealing to a bigger mystery. You have solved absolutely nothing. All you've done is assuage your own personal discomfort with acknowledging that you don't know how it started. What's wrong with just when you get to the point of saying, hey, what's the explanation for the origin of the Big Bang expansion? What's wrong with just saying, I don't know?
Well, I would say I don't know. I would say I don't know, and I just think it's more reasonable to believe that there is a greater power that set everything into motion.
Prove it. It's more reasonable.
Why is it? Yeah, why is it more reasonable?
Because it doesn't make sense to me to say that before time began, there was nothing.
Okay, so hold on 1 second.
Does it make sense to you?
And I guess that's the truth. Before time began, there was nothing. But I guess what I'm saying is, and I know you're not going to like this, I think God is always going to be this inexplainable thing. It's like too massive and powerful for us to even fathom.
How do you know it's massive and powerful?
Because I am a small little human on a giant planet in a giant universe.
So I've been listening, and I'm gonna stop. I've been listening. I'm gonna stop because I know John wants to get in here. But what you've told me is You're a small little human that doesn't have a way to know something, but you think you've determined that you know what the most reasonable answer is, and that it's a God that you can't really understand, that is bigger and powerful, and you have no way to justify any of this, and all of it is based on your own discomfort with failing to acknowledge that you don't know why there's something instead of nothing. None of that makes it reasonable. And when I asked you why it was reasonable, it's like, because it doesn't make sense to you. Well, I'm sorry, but your personal befuddlement does not a standard of reason make.
I'm sorry, that went over my head. Could you say that one more time?
Just call me God then, because I'm also over your head.
Well, so Elijah, I was wanting to. Well, if we can, I was wanting to go back because your statement, you said before time, and like I feel like you should have just stopped there because like I don't understand what before time means. Like, how can you really conceive of anything before time began?
No.
Okay, what does it mean to exist
know if
outside of time? Right. What does it mean to exist outside of time?
To exist outside of time seems like it would be to not exist at all.
Ah, bing, bang, boom. Yeah. So I would agree. I would agree. If you're existing outside of time and space, then it's like you don't exist at all. But so starting from there, the scientific hypothesis that we've been able to come up with as far as like, you know, the beginning of this universe and everything like that definitely does not include an absolute nothing like a lot of apologists like to mention out there, which I feel like is what you were actually alluding to when you said nothing. Typically when people say nothing, they mean absolute nothing. But I mean, if you just, you know, think logically about what we know about like energy and everything like that, you would know that energy can't be created or destroyed. So energy seems to be this eternal thing. So there would definitely have not been nothing, you know, prior to the inflation of this universe. Energy would have had to have been stored somewhere in something. And I personally, like the leading hypothesis as far as like what caused the inflation, and that's the sort of this quantum scalar field quantum tunneling explanation. And that's where you've got a quantum scalar field that's in a false vacuum state, and for a reason or no reason at all, we're not really sure, it fluctuated from this false vacuum state into a true vacuum state, and at that point it released an immense amount of energy that filled our universe, and that is the near inflation of our universe, near instantaneous inflation of our universe. And so that's why they call it like a big bang, because it resembles like what happens whenever you set off like dynamite or something like that. Like when you set off dynamite, chemical energy is, you know, transformed into, you know, other kinds of energy and explodes. Kind of the same thing with this fluctuation from the false vacuum state into the true vacuum state. A massive amount of energy is released at that point. And so like all of this to say, I don't see where God actually factors into that, or why there needs to be any kind of God factor or entity or anything like that. And also just to go back in on the whole nothing thing, that definitely means that there wasn't nothing. There's always been something. We just don't know what the state of that something was prior to the inflation of the universe.
Is there I'm curious, I want to look into it more. Is there like a name for this quantum tunneling thing you're talking about? Like a name for the theory? Where like
yeah,
what came before the Big Bang?
So I can't think of what the name of that hypothesis is, but there's like a number of hypotheses out there. Like if you go to I can't remember what the science YouTube channel is. I think it might be the PBS Space and Time channel. They have like an entire video on the best explanation of the inflation of the universe, and they mentioned this particular hypothesis amongst other hypotheses. Like there's the bubble universe hypothesis, where there's a bunch of bubbles of universes that pop in and out of existence and everything like that. So like there's a lot of different ideas out there. That's just like the one as far as like the last time I went and I did a deep research on it, that was the one that was favored amongst like astrophysicists and physicists, theoretical physicists and all that. That's the one. Sorry, Matt, were you going to say something?
Yeah, just real quick. On Mondays on this channel, there's a show called Skeptalk, and frequently on there is Dr. Aaron Adair, who would be able to answer your questions about physics better than any of the rest of us on the channel.
Okay. That sounds cool.
I mean, you head off and think about that stuff. I'm going to try to get to a couple other calls here real quick, and I got some announcements to make, but that's a lot of food for thought. You can dig around, look into that. Also, watch for Skeptalk when Dr. Dare's on, because I know he'd be more helpful than we are. But thanks. And something is reasonable just because you can't personally think of something better. That's not how reason works. But keep going, keep asking questions. Quickly, we got a couple other callers on hold. We have no theists right now. So if you're a theist out there, if you call in, you go right to the head of the queue and you're guaranteed to get on. If we don't get a theist here in the next few minutes, probably going to put it into calls. We'll wrap up with the atheist and agnostic callers that we have. And I just want to remind people, you get your super chats in. We're going to be reading super chats here at the end of the show. Anything $10 or more, we'll go ahead and do that. You can get your questions in. That we will just maybe what I should do. I was going to do this earlier for today's show, but it's Pride Month, and in honor of Pride Month, if you're part of the LGBTQ community and you're a God believer, I would love for you to call in and explain. Now, if you're part of some God belief that has no problem. I mean, if you're like a Christian, a Jew, a Hindu, a Muslim, how do you reconcile your religious belief with your queer identity? How do you do that? Because I'll be honest, one of my former co-hosts on another show was married. So he's an atheist. He was married to another man who was Catholic. And so here's two guys, one's Catholic, one's an atheist. They're married. I never understood how his partner reconciled his religion. I never even understood how the two of them were able to have, that sort of interaction, because I know who and what I was when I was a fundamentalist Christian. And part of a good relationship is respect and honesty and sharing common interests. You don't have to share every interest, but there's some fundamental things. I know that I could not possibly be in a relationship with a fundamentalist Christian. I'm not even sure if I could be in a relationship with somebody who was, like a liberal, progressive, gay-friendly church Christian, because I find those liberal, progressive, gay-friendly churches to be absolute bullshit. That somebody just decided, we're going to conveniently ignore what the Bible actually says and all this other stuff. And we're just going to, just love thy neighbor as thyself. And it's not that being gay is a sin. It's that, maybe it's a positional thing. If a man lies with a man as he lies with a woman, maybe, you should be doing it doggy style, or maybe that's what the Bible meant. Whatever kind of rationalization you're getting to make it okay, I can't do, and I can't make sense of it. So in honor of Pride Month, if you're out there and you're a queer Christian, etc., I'd love to know how or why you reconcile that. In addition to this program, I mentioned Skeptalk. That's on Mondays. On Tuesdays, it's Chewed Gum. And there they will take calls and have discussions about sexuality, and particularly from a woman's perspective, because there's enough cishet white dudes on this channel and every other channel that when John and I are done for today, you shouldn't hear from us at all for a couple of days at least. But there are other shows on this network that cover a lot of stuff. There's a Sunday show at 2 p.m. Central and the Sunday show after dark at 7 p.m. Central. That's every Sunday. Monday, Skeptalk. Tuesday's Chewed Gum. Wednesday is this show. And Thursday is the Transatlantic Call-In Show. Arden, our lovely and talented producer, do you know who's on TACIS tomorrow?
It will be myself and I think Alexander. I don't remember off the top of my head. I will check and get back with you.
Sweet. Well, then I'm excited. But anyway, if you are confused about trans issues, if you've been called a transphobe, it's a great opportunity to call in and get some education, learn some stuff, or argue with them. If you think, I know what a man is, I know what a woman is, and a man is your daddy and a woman is your mother, and that's as much as I need to know, you could be in the clip. Possibly. Hey, we've got a theist, and I like to keep my word. So, John, let's jump in here. Matthew's a theist from California calling in, pronouns are he, him. Well, this isn't going to be quite the theist that I was hoping for, but I'm okay with that. Matthew says here you've been deconstructing for some time. You're not looking to debate, but like to share what you believe and why. So thank you for calling to do that. Tell us what you believe and why you believe it, or whether you think we should.
Sure. So I don't believe in a specific God. You might call it kind of a deism, but I do believe that there is some kind of intelligent force outside of the universe. When I talk about deconstruction, I've been trying to criticize my own belief there for some time, and at some point in that process, I realized that I couldn't put together a good justification for it, and I do want to be honest and rational, and I don't want to believe something that I don't have a good reason for, and I've nonetheless found it very difficult to shake that idea. So that's what I've been doing in the process of deconstruction, is trying to reflect on that.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I guess I know you don't really want to debate, but kind of playing off of the last caller, I guess I don't understand what it means to exist outside of this universe. And by this universe, I assume that you mean like outside of space-time in general. So like, I guess I just don't know how to process that. And I get that you're deconstructing. So I'm just wondering, have you thought about what that means? Like to exist in nothing, I guess?
Yeah, that's probably not the best description. I have some level of layman's background in physics, and I don't think I could describe in physical terms what something outside of space-time would mean. Maybe a better description would just be some kind of intelligence that's responsive to, or like at least looking on at what we do, and is that there's some kind of accountability. I'm aware this probably isn't even the best description. A lot of people I've talked to about this are like, if you recognize you don't have a good justification for this, why don't you give it up? Which is why I have said I don't know if I can really debate this. I hope this is a decent answer. I probably not.
Well, so when you say you don't want to believe things without a good reason, but you can't shake this particular belief.
Right.
And I'm with you in the sense that I not only don't want to believe things without a good reason, I find it absolutely impossible to actually believe something unless I'm convinced there's a good reason. Belief for me is the state of being convinced. Now, you can be convinced for bad reasons and think they're good, and you can be convinced for good reasons and think they're good. But it's still this process of being convinced. And so if you're sitting here and you're saying, I can't shake this thought that there's an intelligent force in some respect, not necessarily outside of space-time, but an intelligent force somewhere, something, watching and viewing, I'd have to ask myself, if I acknowledge that I don't have a good reason for it, if I can't come up with a good reason for doing this, I don't know how it could possibly be that I couldn't shake it. I don't know how to hang on to a belief once I recognize I don't have a good reason. And there's only, for me, a couple of different options when that happens. One is I don't actually believe it, but I believe in the value of belief. I believe that professing it or thinking it. Or I have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of claims. And I think that if I say I don't believe that, that means I'm saying I believe that is false. And that's simply not true. So, for example, the number of blades of grass on the planet has to be either even or odd. And if I were to say, do you believe that the number of blades of grass is even? You should say no, because you have no good reason to think that's the right answer, even though you know for a fact it's one of the only two possible answers. And if I say, do you think the numbers of blade of grass are odd? You should also say no, because you don't have any reason to be convinced of that. And so if we do it in that sense where we're dealing with propositions distinctly, then when I say, do you believe there's an intelligent force watching everything from somewhere out there? You should say no, because you don't have good reason to. But that is not you saying that you believe it's false. Just like saying I'm not convinced it's even is not claiming you're convinced it's odd.
No, I hear you on that, and I understand the distinction between knowledge and belief and how those categories fit together. I think I'm getting this term right. There's this term doxastic volunteerism.
Yes.
Where we don't necessarily directly choose what we believe. Yes. I told people I was kind of moving towards atheism for a while, and I kind of realized at some point that I was just saying that because I knew that I couldn't justify my belief in God, and it didn't actually reflect what I was actually believing inside. I think, John, you said previously that it might be closer to holding on to a belief because you think there's some usefulness in it, and I think there's probably something to that. I feel like I like the person who I am, and I feel like this belief is kind of essential to that, and I don't know if I'd want to do without it. But I also am aware that clashes with my desire to believe things if they're true and not otherwise.
No, I think that's a great answer, and one that we almost never get. I think probably in the 20 years I've done this, you might be the first one to phrase it that way. And so the question I'd have is, what about you has to change if you say you're not convinced that there's a God?
That's a good question. I'm just thinking about it.
I don't know that you'll have an answer today. You might not have an answer in a week. You might have an answer in 20 years. But if that's the thing that's keeping you there, it's like, it seems like you're trying to maintain a status quo for fear of what might happen. And since one of the most common fears is, oh, but what if I'm wrong and God sends me to hell? Yeah, but okay, which God? Are you avoiding the right hell? Are you seeking the right heaven? And you've moved past that. And now you're saying, yeah, but what if acknowledging that I'm not convinced there's a God fundamentally changes who I am into something I don't like? And my questions are twofold. Why would that necessarily change you, and in any significant way? But if it did, how do you know it's not going to change you to be even better?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I don't believe in hell myself, and this is something I bring up to people who do believe that if you could easily imagine kind of a weird reverse hell where the people who are trying to be pious in their life would be the ones who went and not the rest. But while I can rationally see that, I guess the idea of change is scarier than the idea of going with what I know.
I hear you. Change is terrifying. I mean, I'm sitting here right now, and and I'm going to keep this real short. I couldn't see the screen. For all I know, John was waiting for me to shut up so he could get in here. The world's fucking terrifying right now. And not just because I'm in a relationship with somebody who's trans in a fascist world that's trying to essentially erase her existence. It is terrifying in every conceivable way because there's a constant flood of change right down to the rule of law, due process, whether people care about truth, whether science is of value to people, whether dignity is something we're going to care about, whether our traditions and cooperation are anything that we're going to try to preserve. I'm terrified that all of this gets shut down and I lose any chance to pay for my health care. I'm terrified that if we end up moving to a better state than Texas, which I almost have to do, is it going to be better for how much longer? And did I fail to make Texas better? You know, but you have to make the best decision with what you can. But at the end of the day, and this, I don't mean this to be insulting, and I'm not saying I can read your mind. To me, Matthew, you sound like you don't believe the actual claim, but you have a value of, you are definitely fearful of the change, but maybe if somebody could show you that there's a likelihood that change could be positive, maybe that would make it easier. Like when somebody shows me that, yes, you can afford to and strategically move to Illinois and life will be better, or Minnesota and life will be better, I'll be packing the next day. But the anxiety that comes from the not knowing is terrible for me. And it's on a number of different fronts. And it sounds like you're dealing with something similar on the God issue. And I'll tell you one thing. I focused on this issue for the last 2 decades, at least. I've just done it on TV shows and stuff for the last 2 decades. I'm a skeptic, I'm a humanist, I'm an atheist. And atheism is the least important of those. And while I talk about problems with religions and God beliefs and what's rational and what's not, I don't think you're a problem. I don't think the fact that you're sitting there going, I can't shake this notion that there's some intelligent being out there, I don't think that's anywhere near the level of problematic belief that others have. I'd still like to help you see it through and eradicate it or find faction for it. But cut yourself some slack to just hang on to it and focus on the things that matter most, and it might just fall away.
I don't know if you remember this, but we actually talked probably about a year ago now, where I called in and tried to give you my teleological argument for God, and you tore it apart pretty well, and that did actually have some level of impact. It wasn't the only thing that influenced me, but I've been watching the show extensively for the last year, and I have found it very helpful.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad it was useful.
Kind of disconcerting too, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I appreciate that. I'm glad that we've done things that have been useful for you. Just don't quit asking.
That's all.
Cool.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, John.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Matthew. All right. We got a couple atheist callers we're going to try and get to real quick, and then we'll move on to super chats. But it's wild. There's a lot of people that are working through deconstructing their religious beliefs. Not everybody's in the same spot. And not everybody's as weird as I am. And when I say that, I mean, it was a couple of days between when I realized, wow, the reasons that I have for believing in Christianity aren't good. Do I have any good reasons to believe at all? And as soon as I said, wow, I can't come up with any good reason to believe, And I've been looking into this to try to justify it, to try to be a better Christian, to try to, convince people that I'm right about this thing that I'm very confident I was right about. It vanished. Like it was instantaneous. Oh, I just don't believe that anymore. And then I had to move on to, okay, well then what do I believe? And, is there some other God? Is Christianity wrong? Is there some other God? I've made jokes about it. I've told my story a number of times, but it went from, I'm absolutely convinced that Jesus Christ is King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and that I am duty bound as a Christian to be a conduit for the Holy Spirit to help lead people to Christ, to within a couple of days of, granted, after a year and a half of study to try to defend it, within a couple of days of saying, ooh, I don't have a good reason for that, to being, wow, I'm absolutely no longer a Christian, and I cannot figure out what kind of God might exist. So let me look into that. And that search didn't take as long, looking into what kind of God might exist. What kind of God could we justify? And it was questions like the last two callers. Am I just believing in belief? Am I just scared of change? Am I just filling in gaps in our knowledge by hanging on to something? And what you find, and you saw it in the last couple of callers, is that you start defining God more and more nebulously. You go from God is the all-knowing, all-powerful, all-wise, creator of the universe and sustainer of the universe, who took human form and impregnated a virgin with himself so that he could sacrifice himself to serve as a loophole for rules that he is in charge of. To, well, there's some kind of higher power out there watching and deciding and creating. And then when you're like, well, what makes you think that? Well, okay, there's some kind of explanation for the way things are, and I can just call that God. That's not discovering a God, and it's not justifying a God. It is narrowing God down to where it is untestable, unfalsifiable, and actually cannot fill the gap that you're trying to fill with that God. All right. Let's see here. In front of Zashir, calling from somewhere in the USA. How you doing? And
Paces Nation. No, I'm calling from Paces Nation. But I'm good. I was listening and I just happened to catch y'all randomly. And I noticed a lot of people calling from outside the United States. And it seems simple. It does, to just say, why do you guys still care about this? But I have some inside information. I'm a government employee, and I also just lost some friends that voted for Trump. I remember going back and forth with her because she told me she was Christian. I'm like, okay, are you, empathetic towards people? The answer I found out was hell no. And we were sitting there talking, and I'm like, well, they're going to be trying to do mass deportations, and, how do you can't pick out just because someone looks Latino or, whatever, they're going to be just pulling people off the street. This has happened before during Eisenhower's presidency. And I'm a political science degree holder, so I was really giving it my all, trying to get her to see what the issue is with voting for a fascist or what that even looks like. And she looked me in the eye. She said, well, that sucks for them, but I don't care about those other people as long as my life gets better.
Wow.
To say, like, I'm a Black woman, too. So to look at my non-Black friend, my white friend, and her sit there and say that, it just made it so abundantly clear that these people don't see the humanity in anyone, the humility in anyone. And on the flip side, I got a homegirl that's transitioning. So I said, you know what? We didn't even, me and my husband, who was an atheist, thank God I married an atheist man because I had already been decreased.
You're welcome.
But, I told him, I was like, I can't be cool with these people. Well, first of all, we Black. And second of all, Zariah's over here transitioning. I can't live in this type of, like, I can't sit in this type of friendship with people like that. And
Yeah.
she tried to make it about like she was one of those Trump supporters that you don't talk politics, but you hurry up and put that stupid ass hat on. But you don't talk
Yes.
politics. And for me, as a person who studied political science, you know, I learned a lot about different governments and how the government is supposed to work. And I work in the government. I see the budgets and all that stuff. I kept trying to explain to her before, you know, how this is supposed to work, you know, as far as budget cuts go. I'm in a ruby red state with the highest paid governor in the Midwest. And I just was like, why would you think this motherfucker is going to care about us? He got his already. But when I tell you these red states are going to hurt real bad because we just don't have the money. We get almost half of our budget from the Fed. And it just went over her head. It was like talking to a brick wall. And when she said, you know, I don't care about those other people as long as my life gets better, I thought maybe me and her could talk and I could reason with her. The shit got worse. I brought up climate change, any issue that should appeal to a humanist, about us being stuck on this damn rock together and having to fix like the damage we've done to this planet. And she said, well, I just think that's the end times. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Y'all are the suicide damn bitch, and I can't even get through to you because you would gladly kill everybody on the planet just for your story to be the true story. And I can't fuck with that. And it was just like, I told my husband, I said, we ain't even got to explain nothing because it should be a quiet enough silence that we're done. And we just blocked them on everything. I don't want to talk to your ass when you tell me you don't care about anyone else as long as your life is better. And I'm like, well, bitch, what makes you think your life is going to get better?
If you want, if you wanted something that you could bring up to them, I mean, this seems like a sort of a cliche thing to ask, but you could just look them dead in the face and be like, "Oh yeah, is that what Jesus would do?" Like, would Jesus be like, "Oh, as long as I'm okay, it doesn't matter if other people are hurt."
I tried that. I swear I tried that. But these people are different type where you cannot, like, for them, I heard even some of them say, some Christians say, Jesus, who wrote this? This sounds like some woke bullshit. I'm like, this is really from y'all book, and you don't know that. And, you know, as a Black American, we have always been about liberation theology because that book has been used against my people that had kept us enslaved. So we had to flip it and reverse it and do hoodoo and pull out scriptures out of the book to get us through the fact that we were enslaved. And they passed that down, you know. But also, I just was like, so you don't know your fucking book. I'm quoting you, Matt, because you say that all the time during my deconstruction is, you don't know your fucking book. And I just was like, and y'all some liars, because she, at first, before he got elected, it was groceries are so high and I could barely afford anything. I asked that bitch, how much is so-and-so at the store after this election? She said, well, I just don't know because everything's so expensive. I don't even pay attention. And I'm like, okay, so you're a liar because I track everything. You know what I'm saying? So
when shit's expensive, the only people who don't track anything are the people with fucking money. Everybody else can tell you how much eggs are, how much milk is, how much gas is. The rest of them are just fucking spouting talking points. Oh, the prices are so high. Okay, come cry at me some more.
Right. And I'm like, you were a homeowner before me. Like, you've been winning. Me and my husband, we made it through hell and high water in this economy after me losing my job during the pandemic. That set us back so much because we had to live off of my savings. Not my savings, our savings. And
Yep.
for her, I'm like, you didn't even lose shit. Like, you don't even understand what you're asking for. You think you know what this Trump vote is going to do for you, but let me make you understand, girl. These rich motherfuckers do not care about us as the poorest working people. Like, you got more in common with a Democrat trans person than you do with these motherfuckers that got all the money. You don't even get what you're missing out on.
Yep. I tell you, I appreciate the call and everything else. I'm hopefully. So there's a video. I'm going to give a sermon here in a second before we go on to the other call, because that's the way I do, as y'all know.
I'm gonna drop down, but I did want to leave off on something Durante Lamar said that's very important. We are not fallen angels. We're rising apes, y'all. We're
Yep.
part of the world. This is ours to make better. Let's do that. Thank you so much.
Amen.
Bye.
Thanks, N. Amen. So there's a video that's it's like everywhere. It's probably got 100 million views. Just a little kid. He's doing his homework assignment, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but it's a math question, and it's like, oh, Jaden has $1, and somebody gives Jaden 50 cents. How much is Jaden got? And he says, Jaden's broke. Some of us during COVID felt like that was written about us because, I'm in a gig-based environment here. There, my channel wasn't monetized, my personal channel. I was working here and, Patreon had supporters and everything else, but everything kind of dropped off and I ran through more and more of my life savings. And now I'm broke. I'm just like Jaden. But what's funny is I did not watch this. I talked about the pity party that Neil had with evidently Derek. I haven't watched it. I don't care to watch it, but somebody was like, oh, they were talking about you. And Derek was like, we were not friends, but, and I am the woke left mob. But the other thing was Derek seemed surprised because he posted about Bob Price leaving Christianity, which is already a ridiculous clickbait because Bob did that 30 some odd fucking years ago. So it's not anything new, unless he's stopped going to church because he's one of the atheists that fondly goes to church. But Bob Price is also a Trump supporter. And so I commented, let me know when he leaves MAGA, when he leaves Trump. And Derek evidently seemed surprised and wanted to suggest, is that enough to cut somebody off that they supported Trump? Yes, you dumb motherfucker. That's enough to cut someone off. Someone who advocates for the death of empathy, the promotion of fascism, attacks on the LGBTQ community, supporting Project 2025, the least intelligent, least honest, least integrity, least presidential candidate in the history of the world, propping up Fox News, alcoholic, unqualified people to do in every fucking thing, hiring Linda McMahon to be the Secretary of Education when she can't count. She doesn't know what A1 is or AI is. Yes, it's enough that if people are that fucking stupid and that fucking heartless, that I don't want them in my life, and I'm definitely not going to invite them on my show. I'm sorry if that was a bridge too far for you. Do better. All right.
No, yeah. I totally think that it's legitimate to cut people out for being MAGA, especially in the current climate, because, like N said in the last call, as long as it's not negatively affecting, her friend, then she didn't care who suffered. And it seemed like that's kind of a running theme with the MAGA crowd. And I mean, as far as Bob Price goes, like I've rewatched the things that got him in trouble in the first place. And I mean, it's so easy to fact check everything that he was saying. He knowingly spreads propaganda, it seems, and he just flat out believes, either he believes in lies because he wants to, or he's just not as critical of a thinker as a lot of people would like to think of him as. And he just gets, hooked into the propaganda. So it kind of seems like, there's a bit of a problem there, but he's definitely pushing very racist things, racist ideas, transphobic ideas, and he just lacks common decency. So, that's a totally legit reason to cut somebody out. And if you're making excuses for him, I don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah, and that's fine. By the way, anybody can have anybody on their show, and anybody can complain about it. That's what proper freedom looks like. And what's happening is that people are like, oh, it's cancel culture. It's not cancel culture. It's accountability. It's like saying, hey, I invited all of you into my house and you said something shitty, so I kicked you out. And then all the people in the house went out to a restaurant and you were there and tried to come over because it's a public place and you still want to hang out with us. And we looked at you and said, we don't want to hang out with you. You guys are mean. Just because I hang out with fascists and racists, you guys are mean. Okay, then we're mean. Take some of that. All right, we got 2 calls left. I don't know if these are going to be anything. Who knows? Skexis is calling from California. Pronoun to him. Some presup argument wants to know: does it contain an affirming the consequence fallacy? Hey, Skexis, how you doing? What's the argument?
Oh, I'm doing well, and just want to say I have a lot of gratitude and respect for both you guys, everything you do. I know you hate hearing that, but I said it anyways. So I hear this argument all the time. The necessary precondition for intelligibility. You could also insert morality, or they might say logic, but intelligibility. Intelligibility exists, therefore God exists. So I think there's multiple problems with this, but one thing that kind of occurred to me, and I just wanted to see if you could double check this for me, because I don't know fallacies all that well. It seems to me that there is an affirming the consequent fallacy going on in this argument, as well as the other problems. So, the common example of affirming the consequent that I see is, if it's raining, then the ground is wet. The ground is wet, therefore it must be raining. So
Right.
They're basically assuming that rain is always the necessary precondition for the ground being wet. Just like how in this argument, God is the necessary precondition for intelligibility. Intelligibility exists, therefore God exists.
Yeah, there's a slight difference here. So first of all, presuppositional apologetics aren't really, I mean, yes, there'll be arguments, but they are presupposing God. They are presupposing God. And so the argument becomes there needs to be some explanation for intelligibility. God is the only possible explanation for intelligibility. Therefore, if intelligibility exists, God exists. That's not affirming the consequent. That is asserting that God is the only possible foundation for intelligibility, which they don't demonstrate. They presuppose it, which is why it's presuppositional apologetics. This is why, one of the many reasons why I find it to be a monumental waste of time to engage in debates with presuppositionalists, even though I've done it.
Yeah.
And the other aspect of this is, if you're a presuppositionalist, stop arguing, because everything goes down to you presuppose God. So just tell me you presuppose God, and I'll just presuppose that you're too dumb to talk to.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's been my feeling. Sorry, John.
For some reason, with this particular argument, like it's reminding me a lot of the puddle analogy, because like the argument presupposes, that God is the only thing that explains why the universe is intelligible, but I feel like the person that's making this argument is making this argument from a position of like, well, we, naturally developed in this environment. And so like, because we naturally developed in this environment and because of how we developed. We developed in a way where this world is intelligible to us. So it kind of seems like you're the puddle, and you're like, why is this hole seems perfectly shaped for me? Like this universe is perfectly intelligible for me. Like, but we're shaped by the universe, and so I don't know. I know that there's a specific term for that. I can't think of it right now, but like. I feel like that's also another problem with it.
I mean, it's always seemed like a very weak argument to me. It's basically you presuppose what it's trying to demonstrate, and so it's completely circular. As well. But I have another question. Must we have a necessary precondition? Like, if things are basically based on a couple axioms, like, so wouldn't that need to be demonstrated as well, that it's even that I need this necessary thing?
Yes. No, this is exactly what I've replied in a number of different debates. They're like, there has to be something that grounds reason. Okay, demonstrate that. Just like they do with morality. And it's like, there has to be something that grounds truth. Wait a minute. Why can't truth just be that which is? And then they're like, then they have to have something that grounds what is. And I'm like, I don't even know what you mean by that. And so it's like every time we move it back to, we can go this far and no further, where our ability to investigate and even justify a causal chain or a foundational chain stops. They then just say, yeah, but my God is the foundation beyond that. Well, whoop-a-doo.
I feel like it definitely always results in a special pleading fallacy. Like they have to specially plead for their God and make ad hoc, claims, but dress up those claims as like justifications when it's really just them ad hoc stating some kind of claim.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, gosh, I really appreciate your guys' insight into this. I don't know why, but I keep running into these guys, and I keep running into them bullying other people, and I start feeling all white knighty, and I step in and argue with them about it, which is the only way that I know.
I almost never run into them. And it's,
well, wherever
I'm
you
wondering,
are, better than wherever I am.
Well, it's like the various algorithms that feed me things. So, for example, we watch a ton of YouTube. I watch it more than regular television. Or I don't have any local television service. At most, when it gets to election season, I'll pay for YouTube TV so that I can get access to stuff and watch the debates and everything else. But mostly everything's available. But I have my own algorithm based on what I've watched and what I liked. Recently, this woman down the hall, who I love and will forgive, decided to watch YouTube videos that aren't part of my usual stuff. And now YouTube has started serving me up some other stuff. And some of it's really cool because I would have never known to watch this. And some of it's like, get this shit from in front of me. And it's the same thing with presuppositionalists, where I find that if I'm not paying any attention to him, I don't really hear from him anymore. Matt Slick, who I've debated and who I've generally been friendly with, and who likes tequila, was going to come down to Austin to visit. And I was like, come on over to the house. We'll have a shot of tequila. We can sit down and talk. We can film it or not. Doesn't matter. Because despite what some people think, I can, in fact, get along with people I disagree with. Some more easily than others. But I don't hear much from presups anymore.
Well, that sounds very nice. I think you're absolutely right. I think the algorithm is definitely has a lot to do with it. But Yeah, I think what you gave me there was extremely helpful.
Cool.
So I'm going to let you guys go, but I just want to say again, I appreciate both of you, and I will say I was never theist really, except for maybe when I was a very small child.
Yeah.
But my parents never talked about religion, and I just made up my own mind. But when I was in my early 20s, I started getting into ancient alien theory and fake moon landing and 9/11 truther and all of this kind of conspiratorial buffet of stuff that's out there. And I started watching some of your videos, and it got me really interested in logical fallacies. And I started noticing in my thought processes that I was committing a bunch of these. And so for people that say like, oh, why are you doing this? Well, even for an atheist, it was extremely helpful to get me out of a lot of bad thinking. And so I think what you're doing is fantastic, and keep doing it, guys.
Well, thanks so much for saying, and don't ever call me to say it again. But I do appreciate it.
You got a deal.
Take care, guys. Yeah, I'm slightly better at taking compliments than Jimmy is, but not a whole lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm genuinely touched and happy that anything any of us have done have helped other people, because I don't think there's enough of that.
No, yeah, I totally agree. But also, Matt, you're telling me you don't constantly get served up Darth Dawkins?
I haven't seen or heard anything about Darth Dawkins from anyone other than like one of my friends who might mention something like verbally in 5-6 years, probably.
Oh yeah,
is he still around?
You live rent free in that motherfucker's head. I'm just telling you right now. Like he's stuck in the past, and you always get mentioned by him at some point, like on his because he does TikTok streams now, and he always mentions something about you. Like he'll mention you in some kind of way.
Well, here, let me do this then. Hi, Darth Dawkins. It's been a while since I've thought about you at all. I didn't even know you were still around. I didn't know you were doing TikToks, but I hear that you keep mentioning me. So I wanted to say sincerely, thank you. Thanks for mentioning. You might try linking to me too. That way, after people get done laughing and mocking you, they can come over and learn something. Take care. It's going to look really goofy with this fucking dumbass mustache I've got instead of, the normal face. But. All right, last call of the day. Is it Ian or Ian? I'm going to go with Ian, calling from Georgia. Pronouns are he, him?
Yeah, it's Ian.
I have a friend in the UK whose name is actually Ian and spelled the same way. So I always like to ask. But so it says here you're deconstructing and wanted to talk about a God of the source of reality. What's going on, Ian?
Okay, so there's two reasons I'm holding on to this whole God thing. And one's and the other one's a fear of death, basically.
What was the first one?
It was an argument. I basically was talking to an AI, and I asked it, where does awareness of the consciousness come from? And it said the brain cells. And I said, well, what are brain cells made of? And it said something like DNA, and then it got down to RNA, and then we got all the way down to a particle. And I thought, well, if a particle is where awareness comes from, then shouldn't the whole universe be aware, and shouldn't that kind of hint towards a God?
No. So there's a number of fallacies that you guided AI into a fallacious chain, because is water wet, Ian?
No, it's not.
Water isn't wet?
Unless it's on you. Wet is a description of what happens when the water gets on you.
Well, can my towel be wet? Can the ground be wet?
Yeah, the ground and the
Okay.
towel can be wet.
But wetness is actually something like if you stick your hand in, it's not just that it got on you, it is the particles moving. Like the ocean is wet whether you're in it or not, right?
Right.
Okay. But one molecule of water isn't wet, and one hydrogen atom isn't wet, and the protons in that hydrogen atom aren't wet. So when you're trying to figure out where does consciousness come from, if you drill down to the particle, you're no longer talking about consciousness. Every description we have for the universe takes place at a specific level. Water is wet at this level, but not at a single molecule. And the wetness doesn't continue down. There are emergent properties of qualities. Similarly, if somebody lops my head off right now, every single particle in my body remains, but I'm no longer conscious, right? So you don't even have to drill down to the particle level. It's not just the particles, it's the interaction. When I die, it's because my brain stops working, not because the particles in my brain stop existing. So it is the function of the brain that is producing the consciousness, and it is the consciousness that is the brain's awareness of this. So it doesn't get down to the particle level.
Okay. That makes a lot more sense. Thanks for clarifying that. And the other thing is I'm just really afraid of death. I'm just trying to figure out how to reconcile that.
I have my thoughts, but John, what do you do? What's your advice for dealing with the fear of death?
You know, I mean, I obviously fear death too. I was recently in the Grand Canyon, and there was one part of it that was like really, really thin, and I had to get past it, and it was, you know, pretty much certain death on one side, and I just clung to the other side. So, I mean, I am afraid of death, but I mean, I feel like that fear of death, like the, I get. I guess I use that fear to, I guess, live my life. You know, like I don't live my life in fear of death, like thinking about my death all the time. I understand it that death is going to happen at some point, and I feel like it's my own survival instinct to like prolong that amount of time between now and when I do die. And I don't know what's going to happen after I die, but I understand and I recognize that it's a perfectly natural, you know, concern to have. It's a natural fear to have, and it's one of those things that's an integral part of our survival instinct as, you know, a highly well, I say highly intelligent, but a conscious, sentient, you know, being. You know, it's one of those things that is just part of like what you would call your lizard brain. It's that one of those things that, you know, the survival instinct is just something that's there. And so I guess I deal with it by not focusing on it. I acknowledge that it's going to happen at some point, and I may or may not be able to control that. Like ultimately, I can't live forever. I know that. I wouldn't want to live forever, but I also don't know what's going to happen after this life, even if there is something after this life. But I mean, I use that to really focus on trying to live the best life that I can, enjoy every moment, and you know, do things for people around me. You know, trying to be the best or have the best impact that I can on my community, on the planet, and everything. That's why I've wanted to move to like an electric vehicle, and I finally got an electric vehicle because, you know, I don't want to contribute to, you know, climate change and everything like that. And so, I mean, I use that as motivation to live a better life.
Okay, that's pretty good answer. Yeah, I just I've been tripping over. You know, Donald Trump is not helping at all. Like, I have schizophrenia, and his random bullshit is making me trip out. So that's also been making me worry a lot more.
I can't imagine. So the only thoughts I have on this real quick, Ian, is even if you're afraid of death, if you don't know what happens after death and you don't know which hell to avoid or which heaven to seek, it's better to not take a position so that you don't piss off the wrong God, because any God, a God is more likely to punish you for believing the wrong thing than for not believing something. And any God worthy of belief, any God that is just and compassionate at all, would let you know exactly what you do and don't need to be afraid of. And the fact that that doesn't happen is pretty much why I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of aspects of the dying process. But John's wife just said something in chat that I think is amazing and brilliant, which is that she fears John's death. And that instantly hit with me, because I don't fear my own death. I fear Arden's death. I fear my brother's death. I fear the death of the people that I love. That's the thing. And because of that, that's what drives me. And it drives me to make myself a little healthier. And because she's also listening, and I'll keep it coded, forces me to work to be more responsible in areas where I have been irresponsible. Because for the longest time, it was only about me. I was single. I didn't date anybody. I didn't have anybody that I was responsible for. That has changed a number of different times. And I am responsible for my interactions with the people that I care about. And it is their death that I fear. And it's really a world without them that I fear, which is what religions exploit by telling people, oh, no, you'll get to see your loved ones again in the future, which really makes it much easier to hold grudges and not treat the one and only life you have as valuable as it is for yourself and the people that you interact with.
Yeah, this weird.
Uh-oh.
One,
Oh, no. I'm sorry, Ian. Your audio completely cut out. And now it's dropped. So I guess the call is over. I wish you well. You should perhaps reach out to recoveringfromreligion.org, a great organization. They have a hotline. They have a chat area online. And if you're feeling like you're struggling with issues related to death and dying, related to religious trauma, anything like that, they are a great starting point. And you might be able to find communities to interact with through them as well. They're not everywhere, but there are some local communities and people you can be in touch with. I don't suffer from schizophrenia, and yet Donald Trump has made my life nightmarish. So I can't imagine how it is for other people with other disorders.
Yeah. And I've personally benefited from the Secular Therapy Project, which is something that the Recovering from Religion maintains. And so definitely if you need like a good secular based counselor that's not going to feed you like, religion or Jesus or anything like that, definitely hit up the Secular Therapy Project, because they'll be able to find like a good secular therapist in your area.
Well, we're getting ready to go on to super chats now, but I want to remind people, I had John on tonight in part because the Kentucky Atheist reached out to me to say, hey, can you promote the Ark Encounter thing? The actual website for the Ark protest, even though it will take you to something that's different, is arkencounterprotest.com. The event is July 6th, just over a month from today. If you are in the Williamstown, Kentucky area, or if you can travel to the Williamstown, Kentucky area, and you want to go there and stand up for an end to religious privilege, and listening to people like Hammett Mehta and John and Chris Mallard and the Skeptic, Mandisa, Secular Rarity, Mark Alsip, and Durante Lamar, that's something you should look into. Follow that website. See if you can get there. Go and support reasonable. I mean, this should be something that Christians should be opposed to, that Jews should be opposed to, that Muslims should be opposed to, that there's a religious privilege that is foisting a religious misinformation campaign by using taxpayer dollars and allowing them to do things like having practices that would normally violate fair employment practices as well. So check all that out. All right. Oops. The list of super chats updated right when I went to click on it. All right, I'll start. $10 from Taj or TAJ. Why do we sometimes see people within minority groups turn towards the right? Today online, I found a queer black man who left the left after listening to people like Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson. I have never listened to Charlie Kirk or Tucker Carlson in anything other than short doses and clips, because I can pretty quickly spot exactly how absolutely full of shit they are. And Tucker Carlson, by the way, is a talking head that I don't even think actually believes the stuff that he says. I think it's primarily a grift. Charlie Kirk, I think, may believe it. But when these guys get up against, I don't know, someone who knows what they're talking about, they look silly. But it doesn't matter, and this is the problem. Because when Charlie Kirk shows up at a campus in Texas, huge turnout, and all these kids, and I'm not saying kids like, get off my lawn, I'm saying young people, all these young people feel like they're part of something. They're in the clique. And finally, all these other little cliques that were getting all the attention before, and I've got to be nice to these people, and I've got to be nice to these people. But what about me? But what about me? It's like Maureen was saying earlier, they've become convinced that they are the victims. And Charlie Kirk and those guys, I think Maureen's comment, that one comment, might be the most important thing you heard tonight. That insight into allowing these people with mountains of privilege to feel like they're the ones that are put upon. And then when you listen to the second most important comment, or if not tied for first, from N, about the death of empathy and how when you interact with these people, yes, there's hatred, but most of it is apathy. It is the right-wing libertarian band of, I got mine, fuck you if you can't get yours. And you're not taking mine. Oh, the taxes are too high. You're taking too much of my stuff. Why do I got to pay for this? Why do I got to pay for some other kid's education? Why do I got to pay for your healthcare? Why do I got to pay for this? Okay. Why do I got to pay for your roads? Why do I got to pay for anything that anybody else gets? Why do I got to pay for clean water? Oh, well, pretty soon we won't have to. Pretty soon, Flint, Michigan, if they got things fixed, might be the only place with clean water, because we're getting rid of all the environmental protections. We're getting rid of all these things. Oh, where are we saving money? We're not. We're busting the deficit by another $7 trillion. Doge was a fucking scam. There's nobody qualified running the asylum. The inmates are in control. The Democrats are doing next to nothing. And while they may say, we can't really do anything yet, no, you're the only one who can right now. The Green Party is not going to do it, no matter what they're right about. Independents are not going to be able to do it, no matter what they're right about. Atheist, godless, secular humanists definitely aren't going to be able to do it, despite the fact that we're fucking right about everything. If you don't think so, call in next week and explain what I'm wrong about. But it's in this position where it's my turn to be a victim now. I think Maureen was dead on the money, and I think N was dead on the money with the death of empathy. Thanks, Taj.
All right, $9.99 from Greg Markowski, who says, we were going to go through the Ark Encounter, then saw the prices. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I wouldn't waste my money, honestly.
$10 from Space Barbarian. Thank you very much. What questions does Genesis actually have answers to? Wow, I'm so sorry. Today, for those who don't know, I'm on a number of different medications for my diabetes, and Wednesday is normally the day that I take my Manjaro injection, but I took it on Tuesday, and so the default stream of burps is like it's at epic proportions right now. So what does Genesis actually have answers to? Right and wrong answers welcome. I apologize, Space Barbarian. I know you gave a $10 super chat, and I would love to play along. Genesis.
I mean, as far
go ahead. I got nothing.
Well, I was gonna say, as far as like a right answer, like what does it have answers to? I would say how bullshit creationism is. It's got definitely has the right answer to that, because I feel like Genesis definitely lays it out exactly how bullshit creationism is. And as far as wrong answer goes, I guess it explains why. Like, we don't fuck animals or something. I don't know, because Adam was trying to mate with the other animals, and then God fashioned a mate out of his rib and everything like that. And it's like, do we really need like a backstory on why we probably shouldn't be fucking animals or something? Like, I just don't understand.
I'm gonna read the entirety of Genesis chapter 1, edited, for just the things that are true and valuable. There was light. It was good. Light day, darkness night. I'm up to verse 10 now. Dry land, earth. Waters, seas. It was good. Grass, seed. I'm going to stop now, but yeah, I have to remove all the God said, because that's not true. Yeah, it is. And I think that was exactly Space Barbarian's point. So congratulations for force feeding us some fun.
Mhm.
You
Is it
have to
my
read
turn?
this one. Yes.
Okay.
Even if it wasn't.
99 Yeah, $9.99 from Caitlin Chloe, my wife.
it's
For
their
anybody that
name?
doesn't know in the chat, yeah. How do we get the atheist orgs to collaborate with the online atheist community more? They never seem to want to integrate for more effective outreach for the cause, and I really don't get it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure either. Like, I know I've tried to be very accommodating to any of the atheist organizations that wanted to reach out and do something. Like, I've done something with FFRF, and I'm gonna have the Fish Stark on from AHA. I've had Nick Fish on my channel before, so I mean, I wish that they would lean a little bit heavier on like the online community, because I mean, I feel like that's where most atheists sort of hang out, and they really a lot of the outreach is done.
Yeah, and we, by the way, YouTube is the older, stodgier thing. I mean, TikTok is where things are picking up. And there's people, young people with TikToks getting millions of views debunking religion and battling religion. If Caitlin's right, if the orgs aren't reaching out to us and they're not reaching out to TikTok, I don't know where their outreach is, hey, we're going to print a magazine, put an ad in a newspaper, and put up a billboard in a town, maybe for a major convention. It may be that local groups have to step up and pick up the slack that the national organizations are leaving or not filling, and then get those local organizations to be regional affiliates. You know, like American Atheist has state directors. Will Judy's the state director for American Atheist, and he's the fucking bomb. Like, couldn't ask for anything more. But while he's out here working a lot locally on behalf of American Atheists and getting information out and everything else, I don't know what the local communities are doing. I think COVID was a massive setback. You couldn't have conventions as easily and not at all for a period of time. And I think that the secular community has kind of rocked back on its heels since Trump and Trump 2. I think a lot of us are figuring out that the world isn't working the way it's supposed to. But yeah, I think Caitlin Chloe's point is on the money, that the bigger orgs should be leveraging and interacting with the online atheist community. I will say, though, and this isn't a both sides thing, there's more than one online atheist community. Some of them aren't worth a shit, and nobody should work with them. But I won't tell you who those are. $10 from Jessica Doodoo McButtface. No theists so far. Where are they all at? Scared them at Zen mode? Oh yeah, Zen mode is the most terrifying. If they can't call in to get my goat, I think this is going to reduce the number of trolls, because once they figure out, oh, Matt's not going to play along and get outraged. See, the reason it happens is because unlike a lot of the people who call in, unlike a lot of the people who sit in church every week, I take this shit seriously. If there is a God that we need to know about, what could be more important than that? I took it seriously, which is why I'm no longer a Christian. I took it seriously, which is why I take those calls seriously, why I interact with people, and why I get exasperated when they can't answer a single question or refuse to. But as soon as I go Zen mode, it's much less fun for them. And so I'm going to keep doing it. You know, my heart's fine. My health's fine. I just saw my second doctor in a month who said everything's going great. We're not changing any of your prescriptions or anything else. You're moving in the right direction. Blood pressure's great. Heart sounds good. You know, everything's good. So even the angry, stress stuff, it wasn't doing me the harm that people thought it was. But yeah, evidently Zen mode is an antiseptic against stupidity. And so we'll see if the cowards comes in. Oh, should I read the rest of this? Loving the show as always. ESP Eon sucks. Love you soon. Forrest for president. Okay, to be fair, it says Espeon sucks. And I know what that is, but I'm messing with Jessica a little bit.
I was going to say, I think that it's my fault that we don't have any theists on, because I think they're all, I'm going to attribute it to they're just scared of me. Because I know the last time I was on with you, Matt, we didn't really have any theists on. So I think I'm the one that's scaring them off. Like, fuck, GE's there. I guess I won't call
I'll give it to you. Yes, let's blame John. I mean, credit John.
Yeah, there you go. All right, 10 euros from Man with a Drone, who says, Rob from Spain here. What you said about the young moving to the right in the U.S., besides the huge financial backing in the U.S., I think here in Spain, their grandparents have lived through a fascist regime.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing that, you know, we've come a little bit full circle in that, you know, you had people that were staunchly anti-fascist, like in World War II and everything like that. And then it's kind of gotten to the point where people have forgotten about that. And now they're like basically supporting fascism. And it's like, it's a weird thing for it to be, because it's like they haven't had to live through that. But you can see countless videos online of Holocaust survivors standing up to these Republican candidates. It's like, listen, I've lived through this. I know what this is like. I can see the Gestapo over there, or Gazpacho, whatever Marjorie Taylor Greene calls them. I've seen them. I know what they do. This is the exact same fucking thing. And so I think it's a very, very minority group of people in the US now that know what that's like.
Yeah. Americans are spoiled and stupid. And the further we go from the last war, from the last serious risk to life, liberty for American citizens, the less of a memory there is of it and the less impact it'll have. People don't know what it's like. And it's funny because I watch a lot of reptile content, and I was watching a guy go out voluntarily. I'm pretty sure he's in rural South Africa, and he will remove black mambas and pythons, African rock pythons and others from people's homes for free. And let me tell you, I didn't grow up with much money, but we were all right. I had a roof over my head, I had power, I had water, I had food, I got toys. This guy's going into houses that have loose tin roofs, more people than there is space, specifically to help them relocate, not kill, relocate black mambas that are a threat to them. And I think if some of these younger people who are like, I don't care about those people, I think if they saw that, I think they're protected. I think they're not developing the empathy because they don't see what other people go through. I think it's been so long since the last war that we had to deal with that what's going on in Gaza, what's going on in Ukraine doesn't even register with them. It's not a news thing. When I was in the Gulf War, that was on CNN because we were involved, overtly involved. But we're a fucking superpower. You know what the Gulf War was for me? I was running 1st Division on the USS Theodore Roosevelt, CVN-71, aircraft carrier, 6,000 people. The Gulf War for me was 3 days of planes taking off from the flight deck with so many bombs that their wings almost touched the deck when they took off, going out and dropping those bombs, landing. Nonstop cycle for 3 days, and the rest of the time we just sat out there and floated. We let the Army and the Marines and everybody else go in and do what they did. That was it. Now, I know the Gulf War was a lot worse for a lot of other people. But when I look at things, my dad was in Vietnam. My grandparents were in other wars, Korea and World War II, etc. When they list themselves as veterans of foreign war and they go down to the VFW hall, they fucking earned it. Technically, I'm a VFW. I'm a veteran of a foreign war. I don't go to the VFW hall and feel like, oh, I deserve to be here. I fucking sat on a boat for 3 days, watching planes take off, eating really well, eating some of the best food in the military. Our ship got awards for the food. I just sat around and pigged out. And tax-free. You don't pay income tax during the war. Just boom, you just get your whole fucking check. I'm a spoiled brat. I'm a Gen X 56-year-old spoiled fucking brat who, despite the fact that I was in a foreign war, I can't possibly grasp what it's like to be in a war-torn country. And nobody in the United States, or almost nobody who's, well, not nobody, very few people in the United States have any understanding of what it's like to be in a war-torn country. But I suspect some of them might be headed towards finding out, because the trajectory we're on does not lead to peace in Ukraine, does not lead to peace in Gaza, and does not protect peace in this country.
You know, I just want to mention real quick that I totally vouch for like how good the food can be in the army, because I actually had to work on an army base, Al Dhafra, in the UAE, and every morning for this exercise, we would go to the cafeteria. They had the best fucking food there, and so like that was definitely like a very privileged sort of situation that I found myself in, and I definitely know what you're talking about there.
And by the way, all of that shouldn't take anything away from the people who had it rougher, had sacrifices, who fought and died, who suffered injuries, who got limbs removed from IEDs. All of those people deserve to be respected, remembered. They're not necessarily the spoiled brats that I'm talking about. I am, and the people who've never served, never seen, and aren't paying attention to what's going on because they're in such a privileged position. They don't have to pay attention. They don't have to know how much stuff costs because they got money. They got somebody else taking care of it. They don't have to know what it's like in a war-torn country. That's somewhere over there. And by the way, it's completely understandable. Everybody, there's thousands of people watching this video right now live. How much time do most of you spend thinking about what's going on in Darfur? How much time do you spend thinking about what's going on in Sri Lanka, in Budapest, in Hungary, in Norway, in Finland, Russia, in Japan? You can't. You don't have the spoons to deal with everything. And what Trump and Project 2025 are doing is making sure that all of us who have some spoons are tossing them out the window on 5,000 things that nobody should have ever had to fix or think about. Let's break it all so that we can't possibly focus on the things that are really already wrong. I hate this reality. $20 from Mr. Boricua. Elijah, keep asking questions as you move forward. Keep that curiosity alive. Never too late to learn. Matthew, you're doing fine on this journey despite the fear that comes with it. It's a scary ride, but you're not alone. Amen. And thank you.
10 Canadian dollars from Wolf Enby, who says, I agree with what Matt has said about hyperbole, but I also believe that conservatives will gladly accept the death of as many LGBT people as it takes to make us go away.
I think there are certainly people that are like,
yeah, I think that the amount of like the amount of people in the GOP right now that seem to want to do everything they can, even if it hurts them, to hurt the LGBTQ crowd or any crowd that they don't like, the quote unquote woke mob. I feel like that number is way too high. It's a lot higher than it's ever been, and I think that they will do whatever they can to make those people's lives harder, even if it means their life is harder.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them who want queer folks dead. There's a bunch of them who don't care if queer folks die. There's some portion of them that think it is God's justice to wipe those people from the earth, to kill them all, let God sort them out crowd. And then once you graduate beyond the hatred to the apathy, you still haven't gotten to empathy. After the apathy, there's, oh, I really wish that wasn't happening, but I got my own issues. I got my own problems. I can't worry about that. I can't focus on what somebody else needs. And that's part of the strategy. If we're fighting 73 fires, who's working on climate change? Who's working on social justice issues? Who's making sure that the number of people in poverty is decreasing? $10 for Zareth Moonpaw. Oh, this was yours, I think, wasn't it? No.
Oh, I think I read the last one.
Yeah, you did. $10 for Zurith Moonpaw. Brent's getting our water fixed tomorrow. I've been so stressed over this, and now, thanks to the awesome community of the line and atheists, I'm feeling like I'm making headway. The line is the best thing. Thanks. Well, thank you. You're the best thing.
$10 from Joshua Jamie, who says, what are the odds that we have enough information about the universe to trust the odds that God exists? It's not like calculating the odds of rolling dice, where we know all the factors involved.
Yep. I'm working on a video on Bayesian analysis and where it all goes wrong, just because, well, it's popular again. And all these things run in cycles. $10 from Miss Boogalicious. On Air Force bases, the church chapel was very present, especially in basic training. It felt like a church recruitment scheme to take advantage of very emotionally charged folks in training. Thoughts? You're gay, homie. Well, so I was in the Navy, and the on-base chapel was ignored, and the shipboard chapel, despite the fact that there were 6,000 people on that boat, the shipboard chapel only sat, you could maybe squeeze 100, 150 people in there, and it was mostly empty. I think the chaplaincy should be dissolved from the military. I think it's a violation of church-state separation, but I agree that as long as we have a service where people with religious beliefs are required to serve, then we have an obligation to provide them with access to clergy for their religion. But what we provide is this washed down or watered down quasi-Christian thing. And they serve a purpose as counselors, but that doesn't mean that they're trained to be. So the chaplaincy in the military should be replaced with qualified, certified science-based counselors, like the Secular Therapy Project. And then we should allow, if they take this shit seriously, we should allow voluntary clergy access to the troops to provide them the sort of counseling that they want on their religious subjects.
Yeah, from I guess a more army sort of focused perspective, in my experience, it's just kind of like a normalized thing. So there wasn't really, at least in my experience so far, it's not been like a heavy focus, like where it feels like they're pushing you into it. It's more of like, oh, this is a normal thing. If you're feeling depressed or anything like that, speak to your local chaplain, kind of thing. And I'm like, they're not trained for that. I would not do, like, even if I was religious, I would actually go to a therapist, because I mean, they do provide, like, on base, they provide access to therapists and everything like that. And but it kind of gets me whenever I hear from my chain of command, like, speak to your chaplain or speak to a chaplain or something like that. It's kind of like, I don't think that that's appropriate, but okay.
I was a fundamentalist Southern Baptist when I was in, at least for the first part. Towards the end, I put down no religious preference, in part because of the Navy chaplaincy. I never went because that was some watered down bullshit Christianity. It wasn't biblical. It was ceremonial crap. It wasn't a relationship with the risen Christ. And so you couldn't have got me to go there.
Let's see, $10 from Zurith Moonpaw Brents. N, you are now a part of the Council of Brents. # not a cult.
Which, must be true. I saw it in the hashtag. $10 from Infinite Saxon. How can secularists effectively counter Christian nationalism and Zionism in government when both use faith to justify policies without appearing intolerant or infringing on religious freedom? You can't. I'm perfectly fine with being perceived as intolerant of faith-based bullshit, because I am. So if they think I'm intolerant, I'm not intolerant of their right to believe. I'm intolerant of their attempt to impose that belief and the consequences of that belief on all the rest of us. It is about educating people on civics properly and on constitutional protected freedoms properly. There's no infringement on religious freedom. If you're hitting someone over the head with a stick and I take the stick away, I didn't violate your rights. I protected somebody else's that you were abusing. Not my example, but I love it.
Yeah, and I think that as long as you're coming at it from a very First Amendment to the Constitution sort of aspect, I don't think that anybody can really judge you for that, or at least they shouldn't. But I think that if you stick with focusing on First Amendment, like separation of church and state, and how you should probably have reasons other than religion to do whatever in the government or whatnot. I think that you would be fine. But I mean, I guess I don't really have to worry about that in my current position. $9.99 from Beck J, who says, "Thank you for helping me deconstruct. It means the world. It means I can live in the real world, not the world as dirty rags."
Okay, I'm going to show my ignorance. TAHBK, maybe that's just a typo, and that's thank you for all you do. Keep up the good work. $100 from Magengo with what I'm going to guess is a typo, but I was sitting here reading this going, I don't know what topic is. And I really don't want to look stupid when somebody just contributed $100, but I'm going to guess that I have sussed out, because being in or close to each other on the keyboard, that's thank you with a typo. So you're very welcome. Thank you for the support and the kind words.
$10 from Moira Bannister, who says, "Isn't it the fear of your loved one's sadness when you die the thing that motivates you, Matt?"
No. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I should probably consider that more. And just yesterday, I had a little epiphany related to that. Their sadness that I'm gone isn't something I'll experience, because I'll be gone. But recognizing now that they will be sad when I'm gone means that I have time now to ease that and make it more bearable by letting the people who I love know that I love them, and making it so that their sadness is genuinely missing what I contributed to their life, and that it has ended, while still allowing them to appreciate the fact that we had time together in the first place. So that's a function, a component of it, but it's even if it should be the primary thing, it hasn't been the primary thing. It has been a selfish thing of, what do I do if the people that I genuinely love, who I'm closest to, who I know have my back and who I know have theirs, what is my life like if those people go away? That is the thing that terrifies me. So that is the fear part that drives it. The duty part that drives it is that concern for their sadness, or the impact that my passing will have. And that's where I have a duty to do better by them. But yeah. Couple more super chats here.
I think this one's yours.
Okay. No one will tire against Trump unless the economy tanks, and no one wants that. The economy did tank, and the economy always tanks when the Republicans are in charge. For some reason, I think this is, no one will turn against Trump unless the economy tanks. He did that right off the bat. And I'm not sure how much turning against there's going to be. It's very weird the way they lie and the way they claim everything's a genius, everything was done this way. This was the plan. He's the greatest negotiator, while he's saying, wow, this Chinese president's really difficult to negotiate with. And wow, I thought I was going to fix Ukraine on day one, but it's not happening. At no point is there any accountability. Like early on, when he first got elected, and he was talking about, when his verbal gaffes of grab them by the pussy, or I could shoot somebody out there and it wouldn't have consequences, etc. When that type of stuff was happening, somebody said he's like the Teflon Don. Nothing sticks to him. And it's true. Like, the guy's convicted of 34 fucking felonies. Nobody cares. I mean, there's people who care, but nobody who's going to do anything cares.
Yeah, the current state is literally that comic meme where the guy's riding along and then he takes a stick and he puts it in his own wheel and like falls over and bangs his knee and he's like, God damn it, Joe Biden. And like that's literally the situation right now. And I think that it's hilarious that like when Trump was first projected to win the election and became president elect, there was a bump in the economy. And Trump was like, yeah, this is the Trump effect on the economy. And then once he got into office and he started passing all this shit, he did this tariffs thing and the economy tanked. He's like, no, this is Joe Biden's economy. Just it went down. He's like, God damn it, Joe Biden.
All right. So I think this is the last super chat. And I guess we need to have you on. That way, Caitlin Chloe can just keep giving us more money because she donates the most when you're here. So, it's working out well. This one is $9.99 from... Oh, do you do it?
Sorry. You go ahead. Oh, you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Bree asked a fun question in the chat, so I'm going to ask two diabetics. If you were a cookie, what kind would you be? Chocolate chip all the way.
So it depends on whether or not I want to continue existing or if I want to be eaten. And if I want to be eaten, I would be a white chocolate macadamia nut cookie. And if I want to continue existing and not be eaten, I would be an oatmeal raisin. Even though I like them, I think that's one of the least liked cookies, so I would have a better chance of survival. All right. Final one, $10 from Free Jemmy. Defendants defend and participants participate. The ignorant ignore. It's not just lacking knowledge, it's refusing to hear it when you're told. Truth. I'm genuinely thrilled. And I love my Wednesdays where I get to come and hang out with people I like, do shows with people I respect, and have folks like you who still value truth listen, contribute, and support what we do. And so on that front, thanks everybody for your super chats. Thanks, John, for showing up. If you guys have the possibility to get to the Ark Encounter on July 6th, at least head out and make sure that you have an interest and are able to travel there or support them in some way. But keep showing up on Wednesdays. Stay tuned to my channel. There's probably a link in chat for the other Jordan Peterson video that's going to hit on Friday. But thank you guys for making my Wednesday even better. John, last words.
Come to the Ark Encounter protest. We'd love to have you. Also, follow me on YouTube.
And chocolate chip cookie.
Chocolate.